Good evening and welcome to the Municipality of South Dundas special meeting for Monday, January 15th, 2024. This is a budget meeting with its council team and the staff to review the 2024 budget. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I have a motion to be resolved that the January 15th special meeting of the Municipality of South Dundas be opened at 5:36 p.m. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. Okay, item number 2, disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Seeing none, we can move to number 3, 2024 budget intro and summary. So briefly, we're going to enter into our 2024 budget deliberations. And I'd like to thank everybody's time to date and future time tonight, tomorrow, and throughout the rest of the year as we continue to have the best interest of all of us at the forefront as we go through budget deliberations. But I will turn things over to CAO Mills to begin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you, as you mentioned, a lot of staff have put a considerable amount of time and effort into the budget process for 2024. So I want to thank all staff and the leadership team, and particularly the finance department, for the binders you have before you and what you see this evening. We recognize the importance of the budget process for council. It's arguably one of the most important, if not the most important thing we do as elected officials, because it sets the path for us to deliver excellent programs and services for our constituents. This year was a big year of change for South Dundas within the leadership team, with a lot of changes in staff, myself included. And staff retention and recruitment can be a challenge for us, and we're no different than anyone else in the public and private sector. But as a council, I think you can, and I know you can be proud of the team we have here. There were some unforeseen circumstances with vacancies, but you see a full table here, and staff were eager to work on your behalf. The leadership team tonight will provide you an overview of the achievements, challenges, and then the operational and capital budgets for 2024. Of note, staff have done their best to set priorities in the 2024 budget process and cycle while still working on the comprehensive strategic plan. It will be discussed at an upcoming committee of the whole meeting and subsequently finalized for council's term. You have our commitment to set term and yearly priorities through the operational plan, and they'll be clear and concise as we move forward. Just a few thoughts for council before we start this evening through the treasurer. As a municipality, we must strive to leverage opportunities presented through community partnerships and senior levels of government. In fact, this weekend we'll be at Roma trying to get some grant money. It's extremely important we don't leave any stones unturned. Any and all opportunities to collaborate with the lower tiers and the upper tier in SD&G need to be considered, even in our partnering municipalities. And we're thinking dollars here and also staffing and output. And our municipality needs to increase the revenues through new business, new industry, and new development. You're going to hear some of that tonight. And lastly, a comprehensive review of our assets is ongoing, and the asset management plan process is assisting us with this, and it includes an inventory of municipal buildings and land. Before we start, I want to thank council and the constituents that we serve for their ongoing engagement and support of the senior staff and all of our employees. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, CAO Mills. Okay, so we can dive right in. Please, for the council team, if you have questions, just raise your hand or get my attention, and we'll just ask questions as we go along, comments at any time. So don't feel like we have to have a proper moment. Let's just discuss when the thought comes to fruition. I guess we'll start with Treasurer Stewart. Ms. Stewart.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Broad. I guess to start, vision statement. So included in the vision statement, I guess as a little reminder while we plan for the future. This vision statement reflects on the range of services and amenities we provide, the community partnerships and relationships in our dynamic municipality. So, next, our budget. So, simply put, budget outlines the revenue received and expenditures and transfers out for a defined period, in this case, fiscal 2024. Those revenues must balance to the expenditures and transfers. And municipal services supported are the salaries and wages, the repairs and maintenance, supplies, fuel, to name a few. And then on the capital side, of course, the capital purchases and projects that will be discussed later tonight. Tax levy. In 2024, for 2024, there's no market value assessment that MPAC has not made any new market value assessment. The only change in assessment is growth, and for 2024, the assessment growth works out to about $68,000. And the graph there identifies the class and their portion of the tax revenue. So tax bill allocation. Of the total taxes collected by the municipality, just under 44% remain in South Dundas. Now, external pressures. External pressures, of course, affect us as well. Although we are seeing some relief in inflation, the consumer price index is still higher than pre-pandemic. We are still seeing the effect on the higher CPI. One way we're seeing the effect is through fuel prices. Fuel prices obviously still remain volatile, and with world events such as conflict and war, this volatility will remain with us. Other external pressure, we are still seeing building construction prices on the rise. And finally, interest rates seem to have stabilized. Rates remain high, which is beneficial to the municipality through interest revenue, the interest revenue that we earn on the reserve accounts as well as the general accounts. And for 2024, we don't anticipate any new debt. So budget considerations. Transfers to reserves are increased to support asset management. Capital works proposed are increasing. The proposed capital works are increased by $2.2 million over 2023. And we are seeing currently an overall decrease in federal and provincial government funding in 2024. Other budget considerations of the changes in the budget to salary and wages, $117,000 is due to CPI. The remainder is from the compensation review that was approved in 2023. Now 2024 is the full year that we will see the effect of the compensation review, as well as a full year for the new positions that took place in 2023. Other budget considerations. So staff continue to focus on available grants, hoping to secure additional funding. And I guess a big thank you to our community partners for their generous donations, which are helping fund significant projects in our community. In the proposed budget that we are presenting tonight, the net levy requirement is just under $9 million, and this represents 9.85% increase in the levy from 2023. So I guess to give you a better idea of the impact of this proposed levy, on a residential tax bill, if we take an assessment of $211,000, it would mean $106.09. Oh, sorry, next slide. It would mean $106.09 for the municipal portion, And the full impact, if you look at the second box, the full impact including the counties with the proposed increase of 4.36%. Currently, we don't know of any increase or change to the education rate. So taking all those into consideration, again, on an assessment of $211,000, that would result in an annual change of $172.94, or 6.18%. So draft budget. So the levy requirement, I have this presented, and this is the levy requirement by department. So it shows the 2023 budget and the 2024 budget, and on the right is the variance between the 2023 and 2024. Staff will discuss their own budget following this. On the next slide, it again shows the net levy requirement, but in graph form. So you'll see the green. The green represents the 2023 budget. The blue represents the 2024 budget, and then the I guess gray dashes represents the actual 2023 to date. Of course, we are still posting some expenditures, and we haven't been audited yet, so there will be changes, but we don't foresee any major changes. But that's where we stand currently. Tax rate effect. So for every percent in change means just under $82,000 in dollars. So if we reduce expenditures by $82,000, it's 1%. If we increase it, again, it's an increase of 1%. Debt capacity. Debt servicing is reviewed annually. The municipality remains well below its limit that's calculated by the province. So as far as debt capacity, we're in good shape. So if we go to capital overview, actually just one more. So capital overview. Capital costs, we separate them in three different categories. First being capital, which is your larger purchases and larger purchases such as vehicles, buildings, etc., and those are amortized. The minor capital are smaller projects, smaller purchases, such as small equipment, and then incremental being studies, plans, and design. So the offset for capital, how we pay for all this, how it's funded. First, reserve and reserve funds. Other source of funding are grants and donations, and then finally the tax rate also. So capital overview, what we're proposing in 2024 in total is $4.7 million in capital projects. Now, those projects, what we're proposing for funding is 53% of reserves, or 53% of funding is from reserves, 33% is from grants and donations, and 14% from the tax rate. Reserve and reserve funds. For 2024, the transfers in are just under $3 million. Transfers out, what we'll be using from the reserves is $4.5 million, to close at just under $8 million for 2024. Again, the opening balances are unaudited, so there is potential for movement. Grants and donations, which we'll be talking about further later on in the presentation. But initially, we do have a 10-year pledge to the Dundas Manor at $50,000 per year, and hospice, a 5-year pledge at $3,000 per year, and both of them are in year 5. And I guess lastly, which is included in the budget package, just to be able to read the presentation. On the, it's giving the actual to date for 2023, the budget for 2023 and 2024, and then, of course, the variance between the budget 2023 and 2024. Now, the bottom of column 3, the first circle, gives us the tax requirement by the department, and then number 2, the second bottom circle, gives us the change in tax requirement by department, just so that, whenever we see each department's budget, that's basically what we're looking for, and that's what's going to affect the tax rate. I guess so next we can go to each department and start.
Intro, getting ourselves grounded, thinking about tax rates, tax levies again, how it all comes together.
Love that.
Councillor Smith?
I have a question. Just something I wanted to verify was, I'm just going to, the pay, or the Ontario regulations stated that we had to have 25% of, what was it, in order?
Of debt?
Yeah.
Yes, we had to be below.
Yeah. Just so what exactly, just what does that mean exactly?
So basically a calculation that we do based on a provincial regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And with that calculation, it goes based on the financial statements, and the financial information actually I'm using is from 2022. So it says debt servicing, do I have the calculation? I'm trying to think of the full calculation. It's based on revenue as well as other things, I do believe. I don't do it often, so it's not clear in my mind currently what all is included. But it's done annually, and based on 2022's financial information, it was at 2 million would be our max. And for us, we are at just over $1 million. So if you want to see the full calculation, I can get it for you, but it's
Okay.
something that,
So I was just wondering if it was like if 1 year's worth of payments, we had to have 4 times that amount in reserves. Is that kind of sort of
No,
what it's like?
it's-
No, it's not, okay.
it's not, no,
Oh, no,
it doesn't
okay.
have to do with reserves.
Okay.
Councillor Ward?
Councillor Smith's point, do you know how much debt, so that's debt repayment, right? So we're going to have 2 million in repayment. Do you know how much that works out to roughly in total capital? Like what we could borrow? No way. Okay, I'm just curious.
Okay,
All right.
very good.
Okay.
Treasurer Stewart, corporate services.
I'm
Or-
going to take that.
Sure,
one.
Clerk to the Broad, yeah,
Thank
sorry.
you.
Yeah, very good.
So thank you to Mayor Broad and through you to council. The Corporate Service Department is responsible for providing a variety of statutory duties required under the Municipal Act. So the department provides several information services to council, its committee, staff, and of course, the citizens of South Dundas. So in 2023, as CO Mills alluded to in his introduction, there were several staffing changes in the Corporate Service Department and the municipality. We successfully recruited and hired a new clerk, deputy chief building official, treasurer, CAO, and acting fire chief. In January of this year, the communications coordinator and economic development officer positions were combined, and the position was filled internally by our corporate services coordinator, who had already assumed the roles and responsibility of the communications role. Another highlight that we experienced in 2023 is we undertook a third-party comprehensive review to ensure that our salary grid was internally equitable, that pay equity was compliant, and that it remained competitive to the existing market. So as a result of this exercise, a new grid was implemented to assist with the recruitment and retention of staff. South Dundas did not receive any student funding for the first time in 15 years. This had a financial impact on various departments, as a lot of the departments depend on the summer students during summer operations. And this impacted the municipality in the amount of, I believe, $40,000. Another thing to note is municipal insurance costs. These have increased and are really reflective of the increased replacement cost of our assets, specifically our buildings, and a number of other things play into factor with municipal insurance, including claims history and market conditions. What we're seeing as a trend is we're seeing that rates are continuing to increase due to higher award settlements, accelerating future care costs, claim inflammations, climate-related catastrophes, and a growing litigious society. Another highlight to mention is, as you all remember, because you were there, senior staff and council participated in a full-day training and development session for our strategic plan, and this really assisted us to come up with some draft strategic developments that will support the future of the municipality, and we're really looking forward to having further conversations on that and an upcoming committee of the whole meeting in February. So moving on to some of our capital projects, you'll notice that we have we're projecting $26,000 for our VoIP phone upgrade. This was a project that was actually included in the 2023 budget, but with all the staffing changes, we didn't feel that we would be able to launch that successfully with so many moving parts. So we're really looking forward to implementing the VoIP phone system in 2024. Another project that we'd like to see through is the replacement of our council audio systems. So as you know, we're using our lapel mics. The technology is a little bit outdated. It's very manual. Our Tia is very good at muting, unmuting, making sure that the sound is going through, but we felt there was a more efficient and a better way to allow our meetings to be streamed, and the audio is good and we're not, troubleshooting in the background. And the third project that we're looking to move forward in 2024 is the implementation of our electronic records management system. So this technology ensures that the filing, the accessibility of records is efficient, it improves, is accountable, and overall easier to use for all of staff. The system we have now is, I guess you could say it's outdated, to say the least. And we feel that by implementing a new records management system, we can become more efficient. All staff would have access to files and would just make it a little easier to find history and different records. So if there's any questions on any of these items, I'd be happy to answer them, but that's the presentation.
Councilor Ward.
Some clarification, so it says on page 14 that the VoIP phone upgrade is 26,000. It's coming from the tax base, but if it was budgeted in 23, why is it not coming out of reserve? Should it come? Just because on page 58, it says it's not coming out of reserve. Just
So
wondering.
what had happened when we had sent the the capital budget documents out, we hadn't it was intended to come from the working reserve, but when the stone chair was added as a project, I moved the 26,000 to the tax rate as a lower effect on the levy. Sorry, that was a housekeeping thing on my part.
Any other comments on corporate services? Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thank you. Just to go back to the VoIP, I was just curious, like, I know that we're pulling a lot of money out of reserves this year for other projects, but to Councillor Ward's point, I was just wondering, like, there's a little bit of money that's sitting in the COVID, like the Safe Start Reserve. Could it come from there? Like, I'm just trying to save another 20 grand off the tax rate, that's all. Just,
So Safe Restart has 21,000 coming out of it for the AV mics, and would have a balance of $33,000 left after that. There is, that's not exactly the balance, because there's going to be some laptops that come out of that for 2023, so that number's going to be lower. I don't know that we'll have 26 left, but we can certainly readjust it and use that dollars down to zero.
it's there to use, yeah, so, yeah.
I think in this case, we should deplete that and spend it on the projects at hand.
And just eliminate it, like, just close it out. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's up, the phone project, definitely part of operational excellence. We have an old system, some consumer complaints now, so I think definitely want to get that project off the ground this year. Worth doing, so.
Yes,
Yep,
so,
taking the
yes.
money from the Safe Start
Yeah.
COVID money makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any others on corporate services? Okay, 4B, council.
Yes,
Clerk-
thank
Clerk
you,
LeBrun.
Mayor Broaden, through you. Some things to note under this council section. We did revise our council remuneration policy this year. You can see there's not too much change. I think the most significant change is the grants and donation request, which you will be speaking to, I believe, later on in the budget deliberations. But if there's any questions you have, we can address them here.
Yeah, pretty straightforward budget lines, and we're decreasing it. So if you think about corporate services, it's minimal increase in council budget, a significant decrease. I think we're doing our part on that side. Any questions or comments? And certainly we'll address the grants and budgets during that segment. We want to review that in whole. So there's a segment just on the grants and donations later, so at the end, yeah, so, yeah. So because if we wanted to review the exact dollar amount at that point, we can, but the recommendation is to decrease it for sure, and we wanted to decrease it more. Along the way, we can think about that. thinking back to what we did last year, during the whole budget deliberation, we went up and down, right? On that number, we went up or we went down based on savings here or there, so we can continue to take a look at what's best. Okay. 4C, Treasury. Ms. Stewart.
Through you, Mayor Broad. So our 2023 accomplishments. Asset Management Coordinator is making great progress on the next phase of the asset management plan. The deadline for an approval of that plan of the non-core assets is July of 2024. Staff continues to look for ways to improve efficiencies within the department. We are continuing to update policies and procedures, again, within the finance department, as well as cross-training will continue throughout 2024 to maintain our current level of service like that. If there's someone on holidays, someone sick, certainly someone else can take over and continue from there. As well as documenting all our procedures within the department. So again there, if there's an issue, someone else can follow through with what needs to be done, whether they, if they're trained and if they're not, then you pick up the procedure and you go with that. So just some things we're working on for 2024, we started in 2023 and we'll be working on through 2024. This is everything. Budget variances. So we discussed on the revenue side the interest income, which is at a high rate right now. That, as I mentioned, had benefited us, and it's reflected in the Treasury's budget variance, budget to actual. So it was higher than budgeted for 2023. Reason being is the interest rate remaining high throughout the year. As well as expenses, we had fewer tax write-offs in 2023, and we see that trend from the past few years. Don't see the trend continuing, or we will review it for 2024 based on when Impact will perform their reassessments. So we do foresee possible changes once that happens. So 2024 budget notables, again, interest income will remain high, and we'll see that throughout 2024, possibly changing and reducing towards the latter of 2024, but certainly unsure right now. I guess the only other thing we didn't previously discuss is the accounting and auditing, so we will see an increase in professional services for 2024. Does anybody have any questions on Treasury?
Questions, comments? Mr. Ward?
Two. My first is a question. Do we have an investment income policy where we take our interest that we earn and reinvest it, or how does that, what do we do with that?
We don't have a policy on specifically that if we have so much or anything. Currently, we do earn a high interest rate in our bank account, quite similar to investments.
Okay.
So I haven't made any changes because of that. Okay. But when I see the interest rate go down on our bank accounts, that will be a time that I'll look into it further.
Okay, perfect. And then just a comment, I make the same comment every year. So the tax base is paying interest on the water plant. And every year I make this comment, and I will continue to make this comment because I don't think that's fair for the entire tax base, but I would love to see that move to the water rate. But yeah, that's just my only comment. I don't know the answer to that.
It's 2 or 3, I think. I think it's in 26. I think the last year's 26. Yeah. I think. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, on.
any other questions or comments? Certainly, nice to see the interest revenue, but can't be baking that year over year as the interest rates will change, so good to see on that, and nice to see tax write-offs on the lower side. So that's good, so again, a good budget that's at the decrease side for 2024. Okay, 4D, Fire and Emergency Services. Chief Jeremy, I'll do you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Just a review of our accomplishments for 2023. So these are rough numbers. South Dundas responded to roughly 239 calls dispatched through 911 last year. There's a little breakdown of them there for you. As far as operationally, we had some operational savings last year just by changing some of our contracted services, moving hose testing inside. We moved our medical supplies to in-house, changed our gear testing, and our biggest accomplishment and savings was moving to an in-house training program. In 2023, we had budgeted a substantial amount to send 17 firefighters for Firefighter 1, which is one of 4 components required for certification. And by reallocating those funds, we were able to train 15 firefighters to level 1, 20 firefighters to level 2, and purchase a variety of props. Capital savings, with a new fleet management plan, we were able to extend the life of one apparatus by 10 years. So we only had to purchase 1 truck instead of 2. And we also extended the life of our utility vehicles, postponing the purchases of 2 pickup trucks until we had a new fire master plan with a direction to move forward. So just touching again, that's Unit 163 that we extended the 10-year life with by replacing the pump in through Battle Shield. Equipment that was purchased, a number of sets of bunker gear. That's the safety equipment that firefighters use at fires with a 10-year life. And we also purchased 8 iPads to be installed in fire trucks for maintenance and reporting. This year, our team participated in over 12 fire prevention events. We implemented Meet the Team with the Leader, promoting our fire staff and helping with recruitment and fire prevention. We completed more than 24 fire life safety inspections, 5 vulnerable occupancies, and school fire drills. As mentioned previously, our training this year, we moved it in-house. So 15 firefighters on level 1, 20 on level 2, 8 firefighters for first aid CPR. We enrolled in a new NFPA Resource 1 training program, which is free to the municipality. We were able to obtain a new forcible entry prop that the firefighters can train on at any time, as well as a new burn container for live fire. And these are just the props that were purchased and implemented at our training grounds. That just touches on how we implemented the NFPA programming and utilized in-house trainers. So it took 6 weekends over 12 weeks for our firefighters to complete this training program. We also did in-house testing here with the province. And because our department is so proud of what they were able to achieve, we've included a few pictures of their actual training program and the dedication and weekends that they put in. It was quite something to see all of the departments come together too, working together, and the excitement on them when they got to do the live fire. And that was our class of 23. So moving forward operationally, we're transitioning to a new record management system focusing on fire prevention and life safety inspections. We're launching a community portal that'll let community members provide fire services with important information about their homes and properties should we ever have to respond. We're working with the counties now for a firefighter recruit program. In 2024, we're running a firefighter hazmat program, which complements the certification process, as well as a in-house pump operator course, DZ program, and then of course another firefighter 1 and 2 for our new recruits. Operationally, we have just over $100,000 in pending grants that have been applied for so far in 2024. Some of this grant money, should we receive it, would be going towards some of our capital projects that are proposed in the next slide. So for 2024, we're planning on doing a fire master plan and community risk assessment, which was budgeted for in '23, and actually came in slightly below budget. So that's already begun. We are purchasing another 10 sets of bunker gear to replace expired. We're replacing a number of radios and pagers. And we have a pumper tanker on order, replacing 163, which is going to Williamsburg to replace 143. And then we have a plan of replacement for SCBA. The last slide just shows you our 2023 budget, our proposed 24, and again, the gray line was our actual for 23. There.
Chief Alder Hughes. One comment on accomplishments 2023. That was a massive accomplishment with the training that was completed. So I thank to you and the trainers and all the fire service employees that took part in that. That was a great achievement to get that done at such a lower cost and time frame that we were looking at. Questions or comments on the budget? Councillor Smith.
So the first one was the increase in the advertising. I'm assuming, Chief Hughes, that was for the Meet the Leader, that's where the bulk of that is going, or is there something else?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, that is going for our Meet the Team campaign.
Okay.
Rather than just selecting a few, we wanted to make sure everybody was a part of that.
Okay.
So I believe we've still got roughly 3 months of that left.
Okay, yeah, I think that's money well spent in my books. That's great. I think it's fantastic, so we're gonna keep doing that. The other thing that I was just gonna question was the SCBA's. We did not finalize yet for sure what we were gonna do, which models we were gonna go with yet, so that we did not finalize that yet, did we? We did not, correct?
Well, it's up to the fire services to make the recommendation for us to, I mean, we don't get to pick what models that we specifically buy. Then we put out the tender for that, and we're going to choose the least expensive ones.
Okay.
If not, it's a massive budget intake, and I don't think we really can overspend in that area.
Okay, because I thought we were gonna come back to discuss that later.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I mean, we did discuss it. What I believe we said was we were just going to defer until we saw what the budget number is. I don't think there's any question. I mean, a proper tender or an RFP, whatever went out, we got the quotes. There's a lowest bid. There's, in my mind, no foresee reason that you would not go with the lowest bid. It's either we're going to purchase them or we're not going to purchase it. Not just pick and choose. That's not up to a council to overstep administration's role and to dictate to them what we're purchasing and not purchasing. He answered all they got the answers, the questions answered as we presented. So in my mind, it's either we're purchasing them or not, but it's not a pick and choose at this stage. Is that fair to say?
Yep, very soon.
Okay.
Again, significant amount coming out of reserves, what's been planned for these purchases overall in the budget. Any other questions? Yep.
One last comment. I appreciate the training. I was there for a couple sessions. I thought it was really good. Appreciate all the pictures, particularly there's one that really stands out that's good. So that's a comment I wanted to make. The pictures. So we can do that next.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll move over to 4E building.
Good evening, Andrew Turner here, Chief Building Official. Thank you
Thanks,
very
Andrew,
much.
introducing yourself.
Just in case.
That's good, excellent.
The accomplishments for 2023, annually we participate in building code training seminars, sessions, annual meetings and various specific training seminars. We also provide technical assistance to MPAC, Terrion, Ministry of Environment, ACGO, OPG, ESA, real estate agents, appraisers, engineering and architectural consultants, surveyors, the police, OMAFRA, which of course is our firm, municipal council, members, staff, etc. Assistance is also provided annually to landowners, corporations, people with building permits applicable with our processes. We constantly liaison with various consultants, architects, engineers, solicitors, anything related to somebody having an inquiry to the Ontario Building Code. We also liaison with the SDG counties in regards to planning and several other things like entrances, etc. on a regular basis. We do educational training through the Ontario Building Code for stuff that is mandatory as a designation to keep our qualifications for CBCO and our BCIN, which is our design numbers that's provincially required. We also regularly engage in provincial court proceedings pertaining to the building code issues that we may encounter. Organization of all of our previous and current building permit files is something that's always ongoing. We enforce the Building Code Act with respect to buildings without permits and unsafe buildings, buildings that may have gotten partially burnt by fire, etc. We hired a deputy chief building official, which is my favorite accomplishment of this year. We have a wonderful gentleman assisting me. We're also currently now cross-training that gentleman for the building code stuff, bylaw stuff, and the planning stuff, etc. Variances from budgets. Our building permit intake exceeded last year's total for value of fees received and of construction value. So that's bringing in a little bit more monetary. 2024 budget-wise, permit files that we're expected to include. We're going to be continuing to work with Dutch Meadow subdivision. We understand there's a Ross video expansion that's strongly possible. We also are anticipating working with Sophia regarding their building, and we're anticipating latter part of the year site services for Valcraft Homes for their subdivision. Did anybody have any questions or comments from a building standpoint, please?
Councilor Ward.
I just had a quick question. How often do we do building permit fee review? Is that something that we have on a schedule, or?
Not specifically on a schedule. We have just recently updated that with the new fee schedule that came out the other day.
The other day?
Yes.
And is our goal to eventually, and maybe this is a bigger question to administration, is the goal of that to eventually reach so that majority of the cost, because there is a larger amount hitting the tax base this year. So I'm just wondering, is the goal of that to eventually take the burden off the tax base? Is
I
that the?
believe that would be through administration.
I'd be happy to answer that through you, Mayor Broad, to Councillor Ward and the rest of council. So during our fees and charges update, we noticed that in comparison to other municipalities, we don't actually have a building bylaw here that lay out, the building requirements, what we require of people, our residents who are building in our municipality, and then a fee schedule. So that's something that we're working on internally to bring to council to adopt a building bylaw policy, and that will have a fee schedule in there that is more, I guess, will provide more cost recovery for the building department. So that's a project that's on our radar for the first quarter of 2024.
Thank you.
Questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to bylaw 4F, continuing.
Thank you.
Turner.
From a bylaw standpoint,
We liaison with consultants regarding zoning and bylaw enforcement, which would be our planning stuff. We are continuing doing provincial court proceedings regarding building and property standards infractions. We have several of those ongoing. Completed our daily responses to incoming property standards complaints with our property standards bylaw. Completed daily property standards notices, orders, inspections, etc., to follow up on a specific property standards complaint. We also complete daily responses to animal control issues regarding ticketing, investigations, and notices for items in regards to animal control. Once again, we're in provincial court proceedings for specific animal control items. We also liaison with the animal control officer for retaining animals removal and invoicing. We also liaison with the municipal pound keeper for retaining and removal of farm animals and invoicing. We completed several property standard cleanups. As far as 2023 budget variances, we're still saving some money with decreased vehicle costs due to the purchase of the SUVs rather than the pickup trucks that we had previously. If anybody has any comments or questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, straightforward. Thank you, Mr. Turner.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move to 4H, Public Works. Oh, sorry. Sorry. How about 4G, Planning? Ms. Moran.
Okay, so in terms of our 2023 accomplishments, it's been a busy year. You'll see that the table to the right with the number of planning applications that we've been processing. I will note that the subdivision is at 1, however, this does not account for, this accounts for only the draft plan approval of the Swank subdivision and Dutch Meadows, and that does not include Billcraft, so that'll be on next year's. So, regularly, we provide planning assistance to MPAC, Terrion, MOE, ACGO, OPG, real estate agents, appraisers, engineering and architectural consultants, surveyors, municipal council members, staff, and that's part of our usual day-to-day work. We work with consultants to implement the zoning bylaw amendments, minor variances, and other planning reports. I attended and presented planning documents at council for review and approval. And then also we attend and present minor variances at the Committee of Adjustment meetings for review and approval. So some of the 2023 special projects that we worked on, the battery storage facilities, which I think will fall under renewable energy under our new fees and charges bylaw that was passed last week. We're currently working on a publicly owned lands mapping application for ease of use for developers to come in. And also throughout that development, we're also looking at our surplus lands and moving forward with those. We are still in the second phase of the growth management strategy. So that's a county project, but with the provincial policy statements, they were proposed to change, and we haven't heard anything more from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. We're just waiting on them to be able to move into that sort of second phase of the growth management strategy. Also, we're looking at doing a full zoning bylaw review and update. So over the last year, the county had received some grant money and had a consultant look at all of the zoning bylaws across SDNG. So I've since now gotten the draft bylaw and the draft schedules. And so that will be a full process to go through because I am proposing a repeal and replace of the bylaw to make sure that our zoning bylaw is up to date with today's standards. The subdivision and site plan design guidelines, Again, we're still working through that. That was, again, county received the grant for it, but we will benefit from having an updated subdivision and site plan design guideline, so that is something that will be finished this year, and then as well, backyard chickens. In terms of completed training, so our staff planning technician, Ricky, has been working through some of the training opportunities. So she recently finished with a great grade on the primer on planning course. We participated in OMAFRA training in terms of what we need to know about uses permitted in prime agricultural areas, integrated resource planning with Enbridge Gas, planning permits with AI for Archistar, the EV Charge Ontario program webinar, an anti-oppression workshop, South Nation Conservation Authority's Municipal Information Day, and then a variety of working group meetings concerning Bill 23, growth management, and TerraNet easement mapping. So for 2024 projects, so that zoning bylaw update I just mentioned, the subdivision and site plan design guidelines that I mentioned, the phase 2 growth management. We've been working through the design process for the past year for the affordable housing, which we're almost there on that unit going up on County Road 2. So the building permit application has been received, and we're just waiting for the consultant to address some county transportation comments, and you will see that very shortly. As discussed last council meeting, actually, too, the Iroquois pedestrian crossing with some of the development that we're seeing come to Iroquois. That's something that we're going to be working together on with Manager of Infrastructure and the Director of Recreation. And then lastly, which we briefly discussed last week, the development charges study. So it's not a budgeted item. The way that we could propose to fund that would be to sell some land through the surplus lands policy that will be forthcoming at another council meeting, and then use that money to fund a development charges study if that's something that council deems appropriate. And yeah, so you'll notice the graph looks a little bit different. It's just that our last, the county planning consultant bill for the last half of the year is forthcoming. But for the most part, what you'll see in the planning budget is that the planning fees that were passed last week should be on a cost recovery basis of the anticipated application costs. So, yeah. So if there's any questions or comments.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. Councilor Ward?
Thanks, Mayor. I was just wondering, I asked this question in advance, but the planning reserve has $49,000 in it. Is that earmarked for anything?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the planning reserve was set up by previous administration with annual transfers to allow to possibly fund the zoning bylaw housekeeping that was just mentioned.
Which we would no longer need to fund, correct? Or is it?
There'll still be staff's time, and there'll still be a process that we need to go through as we work through that project, but the actual drafting of that, the bylaw and the schedules has been done. So there will be staff time to review, and then there will be a whole public process that we'll have to go through as well. But aside from that, no, we won't need it.
Follow up?
Yeah, so just to circle back, so the $44,000 that's in the budget pays for the county fees?
Yes.
But the 49 was anticipation of paying for some of those fees originally? Is that, am I understanding?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the $49,000 that was transferred to reserves over time was intended to go through to the housekeeping purpose for the zoning bylaw. That was, I want to say, probably 5+ years ago. So if the monies are not required, council is within its right to assign that money anywhere you want.
Okay, thank you. That just clarifies. Thank you.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Broad. I think maybe you already answered my question, but I'm not sure. The 2023 actual was 21 and a bit, and that's what it shows, but is that because all of the actual money's not been accounted for yet, or is that
Correct,
the
yes. So
final bills are in? Okay.
so the last 6 months of my time as a county employee under the planning consultant fund would be a part of that. So
Okay.
I would anticipate less than 20.
Okay. Okay. Just curious, just wanted to verify.
Deputy Mayor?
These are really not just budgetary questions, they're just more curiosity questions, so I'll keep it short because we've got a long night. We already have a subdivision design guideline. What upgrades or what more work needs to be done to finish that off?
So it stands as it is. So over time, there have been best practices across Ontario that engineering firms and municipalities have adopted. So the county received grant money through the COVID grants, and so they took on a project of redoing the subdivision and site plan design guideline for all municipalities in SDNG. So while that one will be based off of ours, because ours is the most up-to-date, they are evaluating and looking at some of the other work that's been done across Ontario.
So is that going to recognize that various communities have various needs, various budgets, that it's not going to be a one-stop shop for everybody in SDNG?
Exactly. So every municipality, so sort of the way that we've sort of structured it is that so we'll have a variety of, cross sections, and every municipality in SDNG may have a different preference, different costs, to replace. Everyone's a little bit different, but it will take in the best practice as well as a variety of different designs, and then we sort of check off which one South Dundas prefers.
Okay, so just another question on I know we haven't had this discussion formally if we're going to proceed with a DC bylaw or not, but is it fair to say that most DC bylaws for rural communities like ourselves are all fairly the same in nature? And if so, do we really need to go out and hire a consultant for reports that are probably already a public knowledge, and that we can create a DC bylaw and then get a consultant maybe just to review it, proof it, that make sure it is in line with? I'm just looking at ways here maybe in the future that we don't need to go out and spend a lot of money for consultants to do work when there's information already in hand. So anyways, that's just maybe more of a comment to
idea.
think about when we
sure.
move forward on. Yeah, okay, and that's it. I'll defer the other one till later. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, comments, thank you, Ms. Moran. All right, now we'll get to 4H, Public Works, Transportation.
Thank you, Mayor Brown and Council. In front of you, you'll find the proposed budget for 2024 Transportation Department. In front of you, a list of accomplishments throughout 2023. We completed year 5 of our sidewalk replacement program. We completed resurfacing capital works on the following roads: Bongers, Markle, McIntosh, Sealy, Snowbird, and South Branch. We also did micro resurfacing, which was completed on Marine Station, which is the picture that you see to the right. That's the section of Marine Station between County Road 2 and a broken second road. That was a joint tender with the counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry for that activity. the 2023 budget variances, the hardtop patching, the contract portion of it was underspent as our roads department crew has taken on more of that role, doing our own small patches and pothole work with the hot box that we presently own. Our sidewalks were overspent due to topsoil corrections for drop-offs with our concrete walking surfaces. The sidewalks for snow removal was overspent due to the number of snow events that we had where the contractors were needed. And the small tools line, you'll note, was overspent. The key contributor for that line was the purchase of a pressure washer for our Matilda garage. Another line item that should be of note was the brushing and tree trimming. In April, we were hit with that ice storm, and for the 2 months after that, we had crews out cleaning up the brush, which was a key contributor to that line item. For 2024, for our budget, we'll continue with the retroreflectivity on all our municipal signs. We'll continue to do more winter control in-house. We started to do that with our 3/4 ton that we now own, and with our 2-holder sidewalk machines. Bringing that in-house has seen a great improvement in service, I believe, from the transportation side of things. And we're going to do an expanded roads capital program this year. We're going to think outside the box when we start to talk about roads and rehabbing roads, and I'll present that in the following slides. So for capital budgets for 2024, I'll give you a brief overview. We're looking at purchasing some cameras for our sidewalk machines, purchasing a plate packer, continuing with our sidewalk replacement program. This program for this year in 2024 will be actually your council's first year of your 4-year plan that you approved in council. We'll do an engineering review of the Calhoun Bridge. We also have the CLI ECA storm system. Maybe Deputy Treasurer Mason can elaborate on what that involves with the storm sewer system? Or no? Okay, we'll keep going. So for our roads program, so what we're going to do this year, and I'll keep it to a brief description, is we're going to go to an asphalt overlay, where that means that we are not pulverizing the road. We will not be adding granular. What we will be doing is changing any culverts that are failing or close to failing. And then we're going to come in and give it a 10 mm skin patch of asphalt to fill in potholes or wheel rutting. And then we'll follow right in behind that with a 25 mm lift of HL3 asphalt. So by doing this process, this is something that the counties has, of SDNG, in talking with Dana Grant, this is something that we're seeing the same price for asphalt versus pulverization, adding granular and putting another double surface treatment down. So by not pulverizing the road, we still have the strength of the road that's there, plus the new lift. I think we'll have a better outcome and a longer shelf life before a secondary rehab work is needed. So that's what I've presented with Shaver, Robertson, Chess, Richmeyer, Dr. Stevens, Pages Corners, and Kugler. You'll see Nation River Road, the picture to the right. That is a boundary road with North Dundas. That road has been pulverized already and is in gravel. And what I've presented for the $40,000 when we talk capital is just our contribution to assist in a boundary road. But North Dundas is overseeing that project. So that's the transportation department. I can answer any questions which you may have at this time.
Questions, comments? Councilor Ward.
I just have a really brief question. So thank you for explaining how we're changing the roads. That's really interesting. I didn't know we could do that, so that's good. This might sound like a silly question. So if we increase the height of the road, will we then go back and help increase the height of all the driveways? Is that included in that budget? Because I'm assuming there's going to be a lip, or is that the property owners?
So through you, Mayor Broad, to Councilor Ward. So yeah, so we're increasing the road by an inch.
Yeah. I know-
right?
I know.
So within that tender document, there is a line, a provisional line for shouldering.
Okay,
And that
perfect.
would be adding gravel, doing any asphalt tie-ins if there's an asphalt driveway, which is minimal out in the country. However, yes, there, within that, the price that I've provided, that does include shouldering.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Brown. Jeff, can you just, again, you might have explained this too, it's probably simple, but OH truck charges, what's OH truck charges? In your line item, I just noticed it's a pretty fairly significant increase from the actual. It says, under your roads, overhead, and administration, you have OH truck charges,
Budget 63,000.
63,000. Or anybody? Yeah, Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The truck charges line is anytime, ideally, the fleet is owned by the fleet department, and anytime that a municipal department uses that truck or backhoe or shovel, there's a hourly charge that goes to fleet, which you'll see in the fleet budget as a revenue line, and this is the offset.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I'll write that down. I always bring my last year's budget with me, so.
Deputy Treasurer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Circling back to the CLI ECA. CLI is Consolidated Linear Infrastructure. The Ministry of the Environment has requested that we take all of our certificates of authority, and I think that's it, and have them combined into one, and that's a project that has been awarded to, certificate of approvals, has been awarded to EVB, and the part that's in the Public Works budget is just for the storm system. The sanitary and the water also have the similar requirement was discussed in December.
Manager Hyman, you did mention about overexpenditure and fleet maintenance costs. Any thoughts or with that for 2024 you'd like to comment on?
Through you, Mayor Broad. So we're going to continue to watch the fleet, maintain the fleet, and be diligent in our repairs. I will say that this year in 2023 has been the closest that we've come to our budget amount. Yes, we did go over, and I did bring that to your attention with council reports in September, October, and November. My mechanic, our mechanic does a great job in reviewing the fleet, doing repairs, and he does price shop to find the best pricing for parts and repairs for the municipality. So we will, that's a continuing revolving circle to watch that number.
If there was a project, a road not to undertake, any opportunities for us to save some dollars in this budget? Where would you look to?
Well, ideally, I would like to do all the roads. But if I was to have to choose one right now, it would be the Kugler Road. We could continue to maintain that road through pothole repair. It's just getting to the point where it needs to be addressed. It's been brought forward for the last 3 terms, and it's been cut, so it is time to repair it. However, I'll follow your direction, Mayor Brown.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Broad. Just a quick question for Jeff. So on changing the road treatments that we're doing, going to the asphalt from a double surface treatment, so life expectancy of one versus the other?
So through your Mayor Broad, normal life cycle for double surface treatment is 6 to 7 years, 8 if there's not a lot of traffic on it, and then a secondary form of treatment would be required. Micro, a slurry seal, another double surface treatment, a single surface treatment. There's numerous ranges. by going with the asphalt 1-inch lift, I believe that we should be able to achieve or attain 2 life cycles. So maybe get us to the 13-year mark with proper pothole patching repairs and that type of activity, which I believe would put us in a better position moving forward.
On that note, Deputy Mayor and I, we had some training at our level of service agreements at the county level where we talked about different ways to think about the lifespan of a road and doing certain things over that. Maybe that's something we can ask Mike to share, come with Manager Hyman and at a future meeting. Because there's a lot of thought process on how you can think about what activity you do at what time frame or age of the road to extend the road or not or whatever. So in fact, that would answer a couple of your questions.
Yeah.
I just thought about that when you asked the questions. Would that be right, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so we can bring that training, take 10 minutes, walk through that, and that'll give us all those different types of resurfacing types of a road, how that extends the life of a road, I guess.
Yeah. So, and just to follow up to your comment about if there was any roads that we could drop, we're all sitting here with this 9% increase that's brought to us from staff, and we're just in our heads trying to think, where can we cut a couple $100,000, and the easiest way to do it is to drop a road or two, right? But
Isn't that coming from the reserve?
it is coming from
So it's not taxation.
gas tax,
right?
it's not hitting taxation anyway.
Yeah, the only way.
But we could probably switch some things around.
Well,
to
that's
make
what
some-
you would have.
You'd have to switch some things
What
around.
would need to happen, right?
But in reality, if we do that, like, we're just getting further behind.
Yeah, of course.
So,
Yeah, I was attempting to just drive the conversation.
yeah,
of,
because
like, where we're at.
I mean, if you just look at the one here, like, was it Page's Corners, 237,000, if you just say, well, let's push that one back for a year and we'll just move something around like that, that right there is gonna save could potentially save 2.5% of the tax rate, but all you did was, it's gonna cost 250 to do it next year, so that's, nothing's gonna get any cheaper, I doubt it anyway, so it's.
No, and then it continuously increases the levy from year to year if you keep pushing larger projects back, right? Because like
Yeah.
to your point, if it costs 250,000 this year and they cost 3 or 350 next year, so then that's a double hit on the levy for 2025. So I understand what you're saying. If it's coming from taxation, maybe we could have that discussion.
Yeah.
But it is coming from our reserves, and that's why we build the reserves and reserve funds up, is in order to pull from that money to be able to do the road work.
Yeah.
We gotta, I always keep going back, and I know I have this discussion, and it's for another day on urban roads, or village roads versus rural roads, but, our agriculture community is our biggest employer in SD&G and Dundas, right? So Dundas, so it is important to keep these roads in good shape for their use and for everybody's use.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, this is one area where we paid for a road study. Previous council has, and we have that study. And obviously, things change year to year based on weather and what's on a road and how it was built or whatever. But these are things, in the study that it says we need to keep doing, for sure. And again, a whole list of rural roads versus any streets, rural village streets at this point. Is there, I'll get to you, Deputy Mayor.
No, I think you're going the same.
Is there any specific village streets we should be looking at? Because I do know, obviously, to do a street top to bottom, that's millions of dollars, right? But just about doing some resurfacing, is there any village streets that would need just a resurface? I think about, a wise person told me how we redid Fifth Street many years ago, and it's held up really well over that time, so. Any thoughts?
Through you, Mayor Broad, there's lots of streets in Morrisburg and Iroquois that could be redone, but like you said, you've got buried infrastructure underneath. That is a key part of it, that I feel that we'd be very remiss if we did what you would call a shave and pave operation, where you shave off 50 millimeters or 2 inches and you just put new asphalt down at the same height. You're not affecting any driveways, doing that operation, but the first water break that you get, now you got a square patch in a brand-new surface road, right? So it's the cosmetic look. Definitely, we could do numerous roads with that type of activity, but I don't know if we're solving what we need to solve by doing that.
Yeah, no, I think your priority, if the priorities are rural roads for 2024, then that's what we could be considering, but just trying to think of all the options we should look at for sure.
No, I tend to agree. I think maybe for 2025, 2026, I think we should start really thinking about our village streets. And then we have to do some investigation on the sewers, and we budget for that to get some of these projects underway or potentially underway for the future. And I agree. I mean, I look at what happened kind of at Canada Way. We did all that great work, and then we did the cross street, which I think is not Sir James, or is it Sir James? Ontario, and then that intersection of Ontario and Crookshank Way looks like a patch job, right? So I kind of get what you're saying. I do think, though, we should seriously start thinking about doing some investigation work in the future for our village streets, and then really figuring out what we can do and what we can't do. We may be pleasantly surprised. A water main break's a water main break. That's going to occur. That may occur with the best of times, but at least we can get some inventory on the sanitary and the storm sewers, or sanitary, I guess, mostly. And I think we did a lot of lining of sanitary sewers as well. So I think it might be something we do consider for the next year and the year after. At least start preparing for that for the future councils as well.
Councilor Vino.
I guess this is more of just because, and this will sound bad because I have a business on the industrial part in the Prospect Road, but that road, as we all know, is kind of falling apart. And we drove down it earlier in our terms, and there's a lot falling apart. I know we've talked about waiting to do our industrial roads because I know Campbell was built light as well, the Campbell Street extension. We've been waiting to see what Sophia does because there's no sense putting a new road in and upgrading the infrastructure if you're just going to send a whole bunch of construction traffic over, which I get. But I suspect that at the current state of Prospect Road, I suspect would be a fairly large endeavor to repair it. So I'm just curious, will that be all on taxation, or will there be decent development charges kind of, I guess, come into that? But is there, how will we fund major projects like that? Because we're trying to expand our industrial footprint with our industrial park, and so I'm just curious if there's any financial planning for that in the coming years, or how we plan for that.
So through you, Mayor Broad, it would be based on the asset management plan, so whatever we have in there as far as the next road to be resurfaced, et cetera, and the value of it, that again would depend what's built into the asset management plan, and we would be putting reserves away for that. We're not at the level that we need to for reserves, as we know, but there are funds being put away, for these projects. So, is it enough? No, because we're not putting enough reserves away as it is. So we'd have to look at everything and make a decision based on that. If everything that we have in the asset management plan we do when it's required to do it, it's going to affect the tax rate because we don't have the reserves at the current time.
I guess
Or debt, yes, I guess is.
I guess it's mostly just to put it in the front of our minds, because we're talking a lot about roads right now, but that's probably our single most expensive expense, right? Would be road and underground infrastructure. So as we worry about taxation and the rate that because we do want to get it as low as possible, I think it'd be irresponsible of us not to really watch our reserve contributions to make sure that we're going to have the money there when these major infrastructure projects come up, because the underground infrastructure, especially in our villages, is extremely aged, and that's going to rear its head. Well, it already is. I think every week we see a water main break on Facebook, so that's not going away anytime soon. So I guess just more of a comment, just to make sure we're all thinking of it.
Yeah, good. Councilor Ward?
I just have two more
Yeah.
questions, Mayor. So looking at your, Director Hyman, your summary sheet in our books, on page 31, if that helps, I don't know. There's two line items, so there's brush and tree trimming, which is increasing by 27,000. And then winter maintenance is increasing by 128,000. Can you just explain why there's such a significant increase in those two lines specifically? Just for my own.
So through you, Mayor Broad. So the brushing and tree trimming, that's increasing due to the fact that we have a lot of our country roads that have trees that are overhanging the road. Instead of bringing in a contractor to do the work, what I've thought of through consultation with CAO Mills is that we go and rent our own wood chipper and our own scissor lift, and we do the work ourselves. The guy, my staff is very on board with doing that, because then we can go where we need to go. We can address the problems that we see in front of us. And we're not just driving up and down every road telling the contractor just to get what you think. So that's where the increase in that line item is.
Can I follow up on that? Sorry, Manager. Would that then give us more trimming by doing it that way? If we're increasing our costs, are we able to do more of the work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it would be in-house. And we're aiming for 2 to 3 months is what I kind of budgeted for the rental of a chipper and the scissor lift. While we're talking the winter maintenance, before we get to winter maintenance, you will see there's a reduction of 74,000 for grading and scar firing.
Yeah.
Right now, we utilize the grader on lease from the counties for SD&G. However, that lease is up on March 31st, and council and staff, we have ultimately two choices. We either approach them and see if they'll extend the lease till November, or we return it and we purchase it by whatever means that they choose to sell it, because it was deemed a surplus through the counties. So that's where you see that reduction, is because in 2023's budget, we had for the rental of a grader. However, we didn't have to rent a grader. So if things go sideways, and one, we return it, and two, we don't end up buying it, then I'm gonna have to rent a grader. So I just want to bring everybody's attention to that item. As far as winter.
Sorry, just a sec, and with that lease agreement, did it work out all right for us this year, in 2023?
It's through my broad, it's worked out great. We did have some repairs that we made to the grader. We used it, we broke it, we fixed it. It's a great machine for our use.
Okay.
And it would serve us a long time if we ended up getting that machine.
Okay.
For our gravel roads.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah. So the increase in winter maintenance, that would be for the increased cost of gravel and salt to do our winter, and the facilities.
Deputy Treasurer, you want to add to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In addition to the materials that Jeff was mentioning for the increase in winter maintenance, there's also a labor increase for having people in the machines that he mentioned earlier, the 2 sidewalk plows and the 3/4 ton. Now, throughout the budget, you will see smaller decreases in seasonal maintenance lines, because we're no longer using a contractor, so the heavy lifting is being done through Public Works.
So just to circle back, because I heard Parks and Rec, Facilities, was in that winter maintenance line. Is that a charge back service to Parks and Rec, or is it just all, like, do we not have a contractor that does the plaza and stuff? No? Facility? No?
You want to talk about it?
Director?
I'll take it. So through you, Mayor Broad, to Councillor Ward. So with all the changes that have happened and the struggles to get bidders, we didn't get as many bidders at our facilities. So we are doing more facilities in-house.
Okay.
So the facilities budget, you'll see there's a bunch of, every facility has a seasonal maintenance line. If you go through them religiously, you'll see most of them have dropped off. I would say, rough estimate, there might be $30,000, $40,000 worth of snow removal budget that got removed from the facilities budget, and that would, on a full budget, if you're looking at the whole picture, that money got moved over to us doing it in-house, basically.
Okay, and that was what you were referring to with those line items decreasing. Okay, I appreciate that.
Deputy Treasurer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the question about chargebacks, for those locations that we have a rental agreement with, where we need to track specific costs, think about the registry office.
Yeah.
Jeff will provide us with a chargeback by the hour for the machine so that we can attach those costs to the lease.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments on the Public Works budget? Councillor Smith?
Grader question. Did the grader come with snow plow and wing? It did it not? Like, are we still using it now to do snow removal or not?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Broad, it did come with a plow and a wing. We did put the wing on. It hasn't been on in a few years, so yes, we did put it on, and yes, we will use it. We will use it more for our gravel roads, because we have a set of Scarfire blades, just for roughing up any snowpack or ice that's on our gravel roads. That will be what it's used predominantly for. However, with the wing, yes, we can go out into the country and we can push back snow drifts and all that fun stuff.
So just to follow, so I don't know, the deal that we had with the counties was that we got to use the grader for free as long as we graded their shoulders on county roads for them. So has there been any talk yet? Has anybody finalized anything about whether we don't know yet whether they want to continue to do that, or is that still up in the air? Has there been any talk yet about what's going on with that?
So through you, Mayor Broad, there's been no talk per se, because it was just strictly a 1 year. When we return it in March, it'll be a new season, and we haven't discussed that. I do know that if we do own it, we will not have to do the shouldering for the counties. They'll look after their own shouldering. With that being said, because it still is a leased machine, if SDG needs it for pushing back snowbanks, then they're more than welcome to come and get it and utilize it. Type of activity, like, we're not restricting that.
Yeah, okay.
Councillor Vino?
This may be a question for you fellows from the counties, because I was at the one meeting, well, whenever we passed it,
Yes.
to do the lease of the grader. And at that time, I'm trying to remember, but they weren't sure what they were doing for their shouldering in all of their different regions. Has there been any talk about, have they updated their stance on that at all? Because at that time, they said, well, hey, this is, because they were trying to, I guess, give off some of that task to the lower tiers at the time. I'm just curious if they would be open to, because if it worked out good this year, if they're still looking to do that, it might be open for just continuing the same relationship. And that way we don't have to actually spend any money on owning a grader, and they get the work done by us. Because if it's working well now, I mean, it would be great if, anyways, I guess something to bring up at I thought maybe they would have touched on it at budget.
Yeah, we haven't touched on that at all, so,
No.
but we'll
Okay.
commune with them for sure.
Okay, good.
Yep, yep. Okay. We're good on Public Works, so I suggest we take a 10-minute break. So Tia, can we go muted for 10 minutes, please? Okay, continuing our meeting for January 15th, we'll move to 4I, Fleet. Andrew Hyman.
Thank you, Mayor Council. So in front of you, you'll see a breakdown of the fleet equipment listed as a unit number, and we'll then have the year of the unit, and the number in that line item will represent the cost to do the identified repair. An example is for Unit 68, it's a 2010 International plow truck, and would need the frame and the box painted at an estimated value of $15,000. So that's how our mechanic summarized our fleet. Our fleet consists of the recreation equipment and the municipal drain vehicles, unit number 80. Water has their own fleet, and the planning department has their SUV. So within that, the recommendations for capital work is to replace Unit 66, which is our backhoe, and Unit 69, which is our 3/4-ton van that's presently used by the Recreation Department. The van is starting to show signs of transmission issues, and you'll see through our capital fleet replacement, you'll see a sheet identifying Unit 68 to be replaced for 2024. I can answer any questions which you may have at that time, or this time.
Councillor Ward, excuse me.
So for 66 and 69, we would put, if council decided to move forward with replacing those, we would declare the existing models surplus, and then I would assume since they're in fair shape, we would receive some sort of, is your anticipation to have like some sort of revenue come in from that?
Yeah, so through you, Mayor Broad, just like we dispose of all our fleet, we could use sealed bids, or we could go through Gov deals. There's a new auction service that's coming to the forefront now, which is Brian's Farm Auctions out of Guelph. They showed interest in taking our fleet and disposing it on behalf of the municipality. Or we could use Ritchie Brothers that we use to get rid of the grader. We have lots of options. But yes, once the vehicle is ordered through Canoe Procurement, Canoe does the tendering process for it, for the municipality. All I have to do is give them kind of the criteria that we're looking for, and then they issue us a price. So it's the price that we receive is supposedly best price. So that eliminates us having to do the tender for those said vehicles.
Councillor Mino.
Mayor. So I guess just on those two units, the van that needs a transmission replacement, I'd like to see a cost estimate on replacing the transmission, because it says that it's in fair shape, and I can't say I've seen it up close, but I see the van around all the time, and it doesn't look like it's falling apart. And I realize this doesn't affect taxation because it's coming out of reserves for all of this stuff. But again, you could move some stuff around potentially and save some on taxation. But I would like to see that as an option, just because, wants versus needs in this climate. I don't know if we necessarily need a new van, but maybe we do. I'm not sure. And the second one was on the backhoe. It seems like we've got a good use out of that current backhoe, which is nice. I guess I know we have two, and it shows that the second backhoe, the New Holland, or the second one, is due a year later. My question, I guess, would be, do we need two? Do we have operators for two? Are they working at any given time together? And if not, would it be advantageous to dispose of both of them and get one good new backhoe? Would be a question. But that's, I think, all the comments I have on the fleet stuff.
Mayor Hyman.
So through your Mayor Broad, the backhoes, we have two. One is parked at Matilda, and the other one is parked at our Williamsburg garage. We utilize those for loading our trucks in the wintertime, so we do need two. We did have three, and previous councils to this decided to purchase a rubber-tired excavator to aid in our water breaks and in our ditching activities. So then we dropped down to two. However, we do need two to load our vehicles in the wintertime for winter maintenance.
Okay. And are you able to do something, like, to get an option for the transmission replacement versus, or?
Go ahead. So I'll just speak a little bit more to Van 69. I will say, in the 2 years I've been here, all the paint's slowly but surely peeling off. We repainted half of the body a couple of years ago. Personally, I dislike driving the van because of the transmission issues, and it is getting older in our fleet. But if council wants to defer it another year, like anything in fleet, we can defer until it's absolutely broken. We're just running risks a little higher then, but we're certainly open to that.
When was it scheduled to be replaced? Original? This year. This year, okay.
Sorry, just thought of it, yeah, just on that, I still think I'd like estimated cost of a new one, of a new van, whatever you would need to replace this van, versus the transmission repair, with the longevity you think that that van could see with the transmission repair. If we get another 5 years out of it, 1 year, et cetera, at least then we can make a little bit better decision on that one. Sorry to interrupt you.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So the question I had was on, so we keep a snowplow for 15 years-ish. How often do we do the box, like the sandblast and paint? Would it get done once through its lifetime, or like not at all, just
So through you, Mayor Broad, in my time here since 2015, we have yet to paint a box. However, we have painted the frames
okay.
in years previous. But no, we've never done a box.
Okay. Because there was one, was it frame paint or was it box paint?
There's a bunch for frame and box.
It says a bunch for frame and box. I was just wondering if there was something like they routinely came in at like this, the 7-year mark and they were the 8-year mark and they were done just to try and increase like livelihood, or I just was curious if it was like a regular thing or if it was as needed.
Are you referencing Unit 87 by chance? Where it says frame and paint box?
Is that the yellow one?
That's the yellow one.
No, I was looking at 76.
76. 76 is a single axle truck that only gets driven in the wintertime. We take the license off it.
Yeah.
That's just to keep that unit to last longer to,
So the plan is for that one, we're going to try and keep that one, not forever, but for
well,
quite
we're
a
just
while.
putting worst case scenario to paint the box.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's 5 of them on there that all have that, but it sounds like you don't actually ever do it.
We have done it in the past, however, we haven't started up again because we've been replacing trucks more often now.
Okay. Okay.
The trucks don't last as long as the equipment does anymore.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Any other questions, comments for fleet? Okay, moving to 4J, environmental services.
Okay, so through you, Mayor Broad, and to council, so environmental services, so looking ahead to 2024, through our committee of the whole meeting, which we had last week, we brought forward some ideas, some options, some considerations. So just to pinpoint those to refresh everybody's memory, would be one, using the private landfill disposal site for curbside waste to change our recycling contract, which would be opting out of the City of Cornwall Material Recovery Facility, the MRF, and proceeding with the MRF contract with HGC, eliminate industrial, commercial, and institutional waste, planning for future design and transfer station, change compost days to, this would be a positive story. For 2023, we changed the compost days to leaf and yard waste days, which was eliminating GFL and removing the bins ourselves with the municipal staff. And we'll be preparing and planning for 2025 producer responsibilities for recycling in collaboration with SDG Regional Waste Management Group. And in saying that, that is an initiative that we plan on starting in July to start rolling out what January 1st of 2025 will look like as far as recycling for the municipality. So there'll be small little blurbs starting in July, August, September, leading up to January 1 when it rolls into full effect. So looking at that, what was presented for looking ahead, I can answer any questions which you may have at this time.
Questions, comments on,
No, I mean, we're in the
Environmental
middle
services.
of- we're in the middle of trying to figure all this
Yep.
out.
Yeah. Yep.
I think Danielle
Have a lot of questions at this time during budget. I mean, there's more of a story and a picture that needs to be presented so we can make some proper decisions.
Yeah, realizing some of the savings,
Yeah.
revenues right away, and then future decisions to be made. Councillor Wood?
The capital expenditure of 31,371, it's exactly the same as 2023? Yeah, okay, yeah.
Deputy Treasurer?
Thank you. Capital transfer of 31,000 was been carried, and I think this is year 3. That is residual dollars that are from the service modernization funding we received. So the 31,000 that is in that line has been carrying forward for, I believe, 3 years now. It's residual dollars left from the service modernization funding. That money was dedicated at the time to begin the process of installing a transfer station. So that money is available for that project when the time comes.
So it's a capital expenditure,
Like we're spending 31,000?
this year, because that's how it reads to me, like it's,
Yes, I put it in the budget in case the project is going to come in.
oh, okay, I understand. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Very good. 4K, municipal drains. I think we're going to Clerk Woodrun.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Broden, through you. Unfortunately, our drainage superintendent had to be away tonight unexpectedly, so I'll do my best to speak to the accomplishments of municipal drain, or the drainage department. So some accomplishments to note, the completion of the Ferguson Drain project, as well as the completion of the Ruben Matisse Drain. 5 small drain projects were completed. Two tile loans were submitted. There was one 78.5 drain realignment project completed and 2 Section 76 assessment schedule updates. And the department continues to update municipal drains and files and mapping throughout 2024, and ongoing assessment schedule updates as severances are applied for. You'll note there's some future training and professional development that will be attended as well by the drainage superintendent. And so far, there are 6 requests for drain maintenance for 2024. So if there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer them or direct them to my colleagues who may have a better answer for you. But if you have any questions?
Pretty straightforward.
Comments? Okay. Seeing none on municipal drains. 4I, Parks and Recreation, Director of Parks and Recreations and Facilities, David Jansen. Go ahead, Director.
Thank you, Mayor. So in front of you tonight is the 5 budgets for Parks, Recreation, Facilities, the Marina, and the campground. I'll apologize in advance to Ms. Fairburn over there. I'm probably going to bounce a little bit around between the slides, the binders, and the longer budget. I'll probably go through just the operations, and then at the end, I'll circle back to the capital for all 5, rather than doing capital 5 separate times. I'll break out the capital sheet there at the end, and I'll give you the little 30-second rundown on each of those. If we're in here in the accomplishment, there's a boatload of accomplishments, some great pictures in the slideshow in your budget binder. I hope everybody had a great chance to look through them. I'm not going to spend a lot of time listing through them. I just want to first off thank the entire PRF team, Melissa and her instructors for running all the great rec programming, Lisa and Emily for another record-setting year at both the campground and marina for revenue, Jake, Dave, Emily, all the operations and operators for keeping the arena going, keeping the parks going, keeping all those facilities going. So all these accomplishments are their accomplishments, and it's something that we're all very proud of. So I won't spend too much time on these, so Tara, if you can skim here, we got some more parks and recreation accomplishments, and then we head into some budget notables. Most of these are capital items, so I'll circle back at the end. There's a few that are operational. But if we head into the operations slides, which is, keep going. There we go. So as we start to head into these, the first ones that you see here is the parks or recreation budget. There's very little operational changes within this budget, with the exception of some wages and updates there with staffing and keeping up there. So if anybody has any questions, I'll stop talking for a second and let you guys, if anybody has any questions about, I know the recreation budget is a rather larger operations budget, so if there's any questions, I'll field them now. Seeing none, we'll keep going.
Actually,
Uh-oh. Come on.
Nice try.
Now we know where the cuts are coming from.
Comment or with the increase in our arena fees last year, like we raised the rates, how did that affect overall rental? So, budgeting, what our past users were going to use, and then what they actually booked for 2023, 2024. How did that work out?
So to council here, we saw no real changes in our amount of bookings. We didn't really lose any user groups. I think minor hockey flexed around an hour or so, but that was more in their organization and their operations than it was a reflection of the fees.
Okay, so that's good, because that was a significant increase on some of our users, especially at the youth level. So wanted to confirm on that. Deputy Mayor, you had a question?
Just a quick question, and I believe I'm answering my own question. It's just more of a realignment, but I don't want to get into specifics on who's making what, but I noticed on your expenses, on your wage and benefits, it's a significant difference between the 2024 budget to the actual, but then I go down to the arena and it's
Reversed.
not much. So is there, just because you realign where staff was...
Deputy Treasurer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When it comes to wages, whether it's for facilities or public works or even water, I take the salaries for all of the staff and then just average it over 5 years. It won't always be a perfect answer, because the hours, depending on where they're actually stationed at a certain point, and then when they fill out their timesheet, the cost is captured in a certain column.
Okay. I figured it was just the way you allocate.
It's just the way it's allocated.
Yeah, okay. I got nothing on, more on the actual expenses or revenues, more on the capital.
Continue, Director.
Perfect. So moving along to budget number 2, which would be the marina budget. Going through here, you'll see that we had another good year at the arena. There's really no changes in here. The only real change that we made, we're working towards improving basically our business and making sure that we're realizing real costs here. So with the finance department, we've worked at moving a little bit of our staff in the Parks Recreation Department. Some of their wages are allocated within these budgets now, so that's where you're seeing the wage increase. If somebody from my team, at the end of the season, we have to winterize those buildings. That isn't done by the campground or marina staff, that's done by the parks and facility staff, but is part of the operations of that facility. So we're starting to realize more true costs. So that comment will hold through the campground. I will note that you'll see that this budget does balance itself out. So in the transfer to reserves, there is a transfer of $2,437. So that's our projected revenue this year. Hopefully we can do a little bit better than that. I do know, I mean, it's my 2.5 year, I'd say, of managing the marina, and I don't think long-term that's a very sustainable number, but I feel like that's a discussion that staff and council will have to have going forward as to, once we get asset management going, that's definitely a discussion that we're going to have. Other than that, there's no real big changes there in the marina budget. So moving on, the next one would be the campsite budget. You'll see, yet again, not a lot of operational changes here. The same comment for wages. We've realized some of the, just trying to make some more true costs to the municipality and costs for the township there. There's the pre-approved capital budget there. So you can see the transfer to reserve there is about 53,000, so that's out the budget. Moving on then, we'll move along to the rec programming budget. Lots of great accomplishments in there. Busy year, happy kids. So in the rec programming budget, you'll see, yet again, there's not a lot of operational changes. Again, the only real changes that we're seeing is under wages, so that's the second half of our rec coordinator, and you'll see in there, we're hoping to kind of there's another student included in there too. We're trying to up our services with day camps. One I'm kind of looking forward to is a hybrid position between our swim program and our day camp. So having a lifeguard who works at the day camp, takes the kids to swimming lessons and then brings them back to day camp afterwards, which I think is, we're going to run it this year, and just with one student, I think if it's a program that does really well, I think it'll serve the residents really well. But you can drop your kids off to camp while also getting the swimming lessons and just a better service for them. So this is sort of our test year on that. And that's moving along to the facilities budget. Operationally, there's still little to no changes in this budget. There's some tweaks here and there. Like we discussed, there's some snow removal going in, some snow removal going out, with costs of snow removal changing. And the only other real big updates in there is just some minor tweaks and some utility costs, mostly just dealing with inflationary pressures. Any questions on any of the operations of those budgets that I just skimmed through pretty quick there on council?
Just one. Curious if the electric Zamboni has any impact on our expenses at the arena. You know what I mean? Like for hydro, like do we see it on the bill very much, or?
So through you, Mayor, to Councillor Vino, I know Deputy Treasurer sent me a breakdown of the electric bills for the last couple months, and you don't really notice it that big, but I will admit in peak season, our electricity bill at the arena is $10,000 to $11,000. So
Yeah.
it's hard to see the little nuances in there. But what I do see it on, and you can see it in the operation of the budget, is initially we've already cut the Zamboni repairs and maintenance budget, which included the propane. So we're already seeing $5,000, $6,000 a year in savings just in the propane costs, yet alone the repairs and maintenance, the E-test, all that type of stuff that we had to get done before.
Has it been, I'm just curious about that, because it was quite a deal for us to go to an electric Zamboni. The comments have all been good, and I was curious about the whiter ice. That was one of the things. Is that actually...
So Kent Nugent, one of our operators, was in my office the other day, and he goes, we've had the electric Zamboni for a few months, and the biggest difference he knows is the cleanliness of the glass. We haven't had to clean it quite as much this year, because we don't have as much sticky residue going on it, causing dust to stick and stuff like that. So it's just, you see the little things that help with the operations that are just, you can't really monetize something like that, but it's just a net benefit to the building as a whole.
Okay, interesting.
As well as just my personal history in the fall, a lot less fog and or residue, water condensation as well, because we could keep the arena closed and didn't have to vent while running the Zamboni, so that was a benefit too.
Good.
Deputy Mayor?
No,
sorry.
No, I was just saying good.
Good. Councillor Ward, sorry.
Just a comment, Mayor, just wanted to bring it up to everyone's attention. So we have quite a few facilities, I'm sure everyone knows. They can see which facilities make revenue and which facilities are costing us a lot of money. So I look forward to the facilities team bringing back kind of a review of all our facilities, the ages and the future upcoming investments in those facilities, because I think some of these facilities are quite old and I'm assuming don't meet accessibility requirements, so we'll need a great amount of investment coming soon. So just more of a comment that I hope that will come back to us, because I think it's important to look at those things in the future. Yeah, just a comment.
So would that be a directive then we're giving them, or is that just a general comment that you're asking? Because I think we need to be distinct on if we're giving somebody instructions to do something, so.
So through Mayor Broad to council here, I think everything that you guys are asking for, you're going to see from myself and Mr. Nelson within our asset management plan, which is due the end of July anyway, so you're going to start to see it in that period of time, whether you want to or not.
Okay, perfect. No, I just want to make sure if there's a directive that we give staff a directive. Okay, perfect.
Mayor, just a follow-up, is that going to be similar to what you did for the facility, or the plazas? Similar format, kind of looking at all the aspects? Yes.
So on my end, I'm trying to keep it similar to that.
Okay,
That's
perfect.
my background, and Mr. Nelson's going to try and keep it similar to our existing infrastructure asset
Okay.
management. So we're trying to marry the two a little bit together.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome.
I appreciate that.
So now, moving on to capital. If we go to tab 18, I'm going to go through the big list. Just on the facilities ends, I'm going to give the Coles Notes 5-second version of everything. Obviously, when it comes to facilities, recreation, I joined Public Works, and it's a large amount of capital funds, so it's the spot where you can end up finding some savings and stuff like that on projects that you may or may not want to move forward with. At the end of the day, like Councillor Ward mentioned, we have a lot of facilities and a lot of projects that we could do. So trying to prioritize them on the facilities end, I'll personally say it's very difficult, and much to Director Hyman, I'd love to do them all, but unfortunately we can't. So just I'll start at the top and I'll work my way down. I will start with economic development. There is $30,000 included in the capital budget. That's already been pre-approved, so that's the mural project that the facilities team is going to take care of this year. Working our way down the facilities capital, we got a few canceled projects at Matilda Hall, but one that we did hold on to was a little bit of stage and curtain work. We've done a lot of upgrades there. Currently you walk in, the two things that you notice first are missing ceiling tiles and the ugly curtains and stage. The ceiling tiles I don't want to fix until the roof gets fixed, but the low-hanging fruit to make the facility, just to finish up those renovations that we've done. The Public Works overhead door, council we did put 2 new doors in last year, so this is just us continuing. This year we'll do a cover-all door at the Matilda shop. The Public Works single pane windows, I know this is one that I think has been in the budget for the last 5 years. We do have staff who work out of both Public Works garages. They have cracked and single pane windows that are inefficient and honestly not very secure either. So this is us moving towards replacing them. The next one is the archives. We did put new eaves troughs on this year. That project came in under budget, so you can see we're taking it out of reserves. This is just the final stormwater items on there. The Williamsburg Rec Building, we have a couple $1,000s in there. The lighting in there is very dim, and also it's a very large park, and we don't have technically publicly accessible washrooms, so I'd like to put those doors on a timer. I think it'll greatly improve the public use of that park to just, if you ever take your kids to a park and not have a washroom available, it ruins your park trip real quick. Continuing from there, we have the Justice Building washroom design. That's just a carryover project from 2023. Iroquois Beach ventilation, we've put a whole new building envelope on there in the last couple of years, dried the building out, but the air doesn't move quite as well as we want it to in there, so in the summer, when we do cleaning, the moisture doesn't leave, so we just gotta do some ventilation upgrades there. The Iroquois architectural study, that's just a carryover, it's already an approved project. Carmen House, as we know, we do own the museum there. It is a historic building, and there's a plethora of things that we could do there, so this is us just continuing to work away at them. The municipal office front steps, as you see them every single time you start parking this parking lot, they are starting to degrade, and definitely it's the first thing you see in this building, so it's something that we definitely want to try and keep up to date, and it's a large building, so just trying to pluck away at small projects here. A new floor machine is in the minor capital budget. We currently don't have a floor machine at Matilda Hall, which is our largest one. The one that we do have at the arena is aging out and probably doesn't have that many hours left on it, but it would get less use at Matilda Hall. And there are times in the year that we do need 2 at the arena for slab in and slab out. So this is getting a new one for the arena and then taking the old one and sending it to Matilda Hall. And it helps with the maintenance of the new floors that we just put in there. Replacement tables and chairs for halls. This is just, it's sort of a lag behind item that we're trying to pick up on. And then we move into plazas, which I know council did receive our big report the other day, and we haven't come back with a committee of the whole. That is still in the works. So there's a few smaller jobs in there. Mooresburg, we don't have any large projects planned, but you will note in that report, one information that we were missing was some information on the stormwater system. In the water budget, they were doing a review of some camera work on the water and sewer lines there. So this is us budgeting to do the same sort of work on the storm systems there, so that'll help us make the next step decision. It was just the last piece of information we needed there. The next two are sort of a small project at both malls that have been requested for either through the BIA or through the business group. So just some small projects to help with beautification. The 50/50 grant was approved last year for the gazebo. We put some money in. The big one there is $130,000 at the Iroquois Plaza. This is a project that myself, Director Hyman, and the planner from SDNG have sort of been puttering around. You guys would have seen it in the grant application at the last council meeting. The money there, looking at the amount of scope there, I don't think we quite have enough funds to do as much as we'd love to do, but I also see this as a great first step in moving forward with our plan that we presented to council. As much as we haven't had the committee of the whole, it puts $100,000 into infrastructure there, which going forward we can use to, let's say next year, we want to take that $100,000 and do some sidewalk work in Mooresburg, because we'll have all the information. We can keep working on our plaza, so it's almost the first step of us adding to paying for the capital projects at the mall. And then the skim coat, I pulled it out of repairs and maintenance. That's very similar to what Director Hyman decided to do at the malls this year, which ended up working quite well. It reduced, rather than pothole patching and watching the potholes fall out, we put that larger skim coat on, and I think as much as it is a patch, what we need right now is placeholders while we continue to work forward for projects, so that was that one. So I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have on the facilities capital budget.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Broad. The one that I was thinking of is the front step repair for the building here. Should that not come out of a capital budget somewhere, like it is a building maintenance? Could that not come out of is there not a reserve or something that we could pull that out of instead of just coming out of taxation? Just curious.
There is, through you, Mayor Broad, there is the Parks and Facilities Reserve, but I will note that it's not overflowing with, it's not a very healthy reserve. A lot of it is, I think it's at about 400,000, and a lot of it is earmarked for like the arena project and stuff like that.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
There's a couple comments I just want to make. Councillor Smith just touched upon it. When I look at some level of services, I kind of look at what is the essential level of service just versus what is a level of service. Although I do understand that maybe the steps are deteriorating a bit, but I just don't think that's a project that's a needed project. Nobody uses the front steps. I think we should just defer that.
Defer?
Just nuke it. That would be my suggestion on that. So I'd like to know if, before I go to the next two items, if that's something you'd be willing to entertain.
My initial thoughts was nobody walks up the stairs. And while it is the front of the building, I mean, I park next to them just coming here, and most of the time I'm just headed straight for the front door. I don't want to see this building fall apart, but I looked at them yesterday just out of curiosity, and I think we can probably squeeze another year out of them, personally. So I would support that.
Defer on that one?
The second one, if I may, I know Councillor Vino, you presented a concept plan for the Mooresburg waterfront, and I know that you're a big proponent and supporter, so am I. But I believe what I recall, and I went back to my notes, I kind of recalled the discussions. I think the next steps were, you guys were supposed to, the waterfront committee supposed to kind of formalize your overall concept plan and then come to the public and get some public feedback. I think we should be doing that before we go out and spend engineering money on parking lots. I'm not saying at the end of the day that the parking isn't required, because we know there's a parking issue, but I think there's a bigger picture here, and I think we should be engaging the public at this time before we start spending engineering dollars on engineering studies. So I would actually just like to defer that $43,000 at this time until we actually engage the public. Let's get some feedback. Let's make sure this is exactly what is required for the whole functionality of the park with that feedback. So I would propose just of the money of just deferring that $43,000 until we get the more public consultation.
I
think you jumped ahead to a recreation item.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
David, you were on a roll, I was on a roll.
He hadn't
Sorry.
discussed that yet.
My bad, sorry.
Let's come back to
Almost as
that.
bad as you with your skipping the whole section.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's just like-
Okay, I'll defer that, but think about that.
No, you got time to think.
Councillor. Sorry, my bad.
No, I
I'm
think
just
you
going
want,
through cap.
I guess the only other, and it was a comment we had at our last council meeting as well, is about the streetscaping and the Iroquois Plaza segment, and/or thoughts that as the Valcrafton development gets initiated, some of that money potentially could come from them versus the taxation. So could we think about, for now, thinking about less money on that budget line item if we, because we have the Ross video donation and we potentially could be getting Valcraft intake for some of that work that was listed in that. And I know we asked too for, at a future council meeting to get more details on that, but we wanted to pull it out, so.
So yeah, through you, Mayor, brought to council, I will note that like my capital sheet there, I don't think our funding is enough to fund the entire project as displayed anyway. I will say the two lovely people beside me, Stephanie and Jeff, we have started having some more discussions about the sidewalk and the crosswalk. I think moving forward with more green space and putting in the sidewalk on our side of the road isn't going to affect exactly where we put that crosswalk in the long term. So if we wanted to move forward with the green space project, which ties in well with the gazebo project and removing some of the degrading infrastructure on the existing roadway and in the existing parking lot, the unused area there, I think moving forward with the project is, I'd hate for us to start talking and talking and talking and not have the funds to go ahead and do the project when we're ready to go.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Broad, and I gotta be sensitive on this one because I'm kind of wearing two hats a little bit, but I tend to agree if there are developments, and I'm talking in general, if there are developments that are applications that have been submitted that specifically has said there's needs for such items as whatever the item is. It could be a signalized intersection, it could be a modification of existing road, it could be for crosswalks, then typically that's borne by the developer. So I think I'm on the lines with Mayor Broad's thinking is that if there is a need by the developers to install the crosswalks, then I think we should be netting that out, and if there's a donation from Ross of the 30,000, then you're still getting your 100,000. You're just taking 70,000 from taxation, you're moving over to the 30,000 to do the parking lot upgrades, and then if there is a demand or a need for a crosswalk because of development, then that's where that should come out of. So I don't think you're reducing the money you're receiving, you're just allocating that donation towards the project, and you're just asking for taxation to be less.
Director? Okay. Councilor Vino?
Just on that line item, because it's the largest one in that section by far, and it's borne straight by the taxpayer. I guess my only fear here is, and I realize that line item doesn't necessarily have to go just towards that project. It could be put away and then used, if we decided not to go ahead with that project, could be used for sidewalks or something else. But the plazas are a much bigger discussion that this council wants to have, and so while I would love to see more green space there, and not so much that, it's actually the traffic flow in that plaza is, dreadful. So that was more the intriguing part about this project, was closing up that one entryway and making the traffic flow a little nicer. As much as I'd like to do that, I think, spending any money in there on any major infrastructure changes before we come up with a bona fide plan as path forward with the plazas, with the infrastructure as a whole, I think is kind of poor choice in my opinion. I'd be kind of looking to reduce that line item, I think, personally. Not saying we need to eliminate it, but I don't know that I can't see this project getting off the ground this year. And if we could even shave it by half, I mean, we may be able to, with that and a combination of a couple other things, we may be able to drop our proposed tax rates by a percentage point. And I realize that's not a lot, but I don't know if I can stomach spending money on that project until we have a plan forward for Plaza.
So really, sorry.
Deputy Mayor?
So really what you're saying is almost, we are but my proposal is we are reducing it by, so are you thinking we would want to reduce it more than the 70,000 or leave it at the 70, recognizing that potentially we still hopefully will get a donation of some money from Ross?
I'm open to whatever number, I think it needs to go down. I mean, whether it goes down by half or down to 70, I mean, we're splitting hairs, but I definitely think that there's room for savings there, I guess is where I'm going with this. And the actual number is open for this council to discuss.
I like to think we want to keep money in there, just even if what we just start with something, and then if it's carryover and we actually get the bigger projects, we have some money in there. So I wouldn't want to go too low, but I think we should think about minimally the 30,000 that we got the crosswalk piece.
I'm comfortable with the 30,000.
Councillor Smith?
So question for David, will this, if it's fully funded, this project, will it happen, the whole thing this year?
Through you, Mayor Broad, to Councilor Smith, that would be the goal. I know I've talked to Director Hyman, and it's sort of our plan to try and find the right balance of doing it in-house and not in-house. At the end of the day, like I said, it's a very tight budget for us to do the amount of work that we've outlined there. I was highly doubtful that we'd be able to get the crosswalk in this year, mostly just the green space, the sidewalk, all on the mall side type of work, and that would, honestly, there is no, I don't think it would affect the plaza infrastructure very much because there's not a lot of underground infrastructure in that area. We're closing and reducing the amount of infrastructure. So I think it fits well into our long-term plans there, our vision, it fits in there. But at the end of the day, if council wishes to reduce it, we'll continue to work with whatever funding we have and do as much work as we can. That's what staff's going to continue to do.
So another question I had was, in regards to closing off the entrance from Highway 2, would that be a county issue? That's something that they should be looking after? If we request that, could they do that? Or, because it's a county road, how would that work?
So through you, Mayor Broad, unfortunately, I believe since it leads into our property, we would own the entrance then. We have discussed the entrance with the counties, and they're in complete agreement with Councillor Vino and everybody. The traffic flow isn't great there. It would be almost beneficial to close that entrance because there's 3 entrances within 100 meters.
Would this be a phased project then, right?
Through you, Mayor Broad, Councillor Vino, that's sort of how I was proposing it, is that we're going to end up having to phase it anyway, because I don't think what's in our budget right now is enough to do everything that we'd love to do, but I think it all fits within the plan of the plaza. As I sort of chose this one because there's not a lot of underground infrastructure in that area. And all we're doing from a holistic view is reducing our infrastructure burden at the plaza.
Yeah, to add to that, I think one of the other factors is the money the Iroquois Business Group have set aside and the match by us for their gazebo, that we kind of need to have a final plan of where the gazebo would sit. Right, so we want to kind of have this done. I don't think taking some money out of this budget line right now, we still have work to do on, hey, what we're going to do, quotes, et cetera, right? And if we felt that there was a bigger project to be had, we could look at it differently later on in the year, but from a overall taxation, I think this is a place where we should look at. Councillor Wood?
Yeah, I just had a couple comments. So I think I would agree to what the deputy mayor is indicating, where we at least reduce it to the 70,000, because I think that, in the long scheme of things, that developer should be contributing to that crosswalk. But I think, I get what you're saying, and I'm also concerned, so has there been feedback on this plan from the Iroquois Business Group, or did you just make this plan?
I can comment as I attend the meetings with Sierra Mills. Yeah, they want this. They want the, certainly the final details should be reviewed, so they totally understand, but in our quarterly meetings we have with them, they're like, yes, we like green space, and yes, the better flow is something they were definitely interested in, so.
So and this might not be a popular opinion, but, you know, we're making a new park, which means we'll have more maintenance, regardless of if it's a grass space or a pavilion or whatever. I was kind of hoping to not take on more costs with these plazas, and this is going to put us on the hook for more things. I'm assuming more green space will mean they'll want to have more events, which will mean more liability insurance as well. I also feel that if we're going to be building a park, the money should come out of the Parkland Reserve, which is planning contributes when every development happens, severance, they all contribute to the Parkland Reserve. And I noted that we're not taking any money out of the Parkland Reserve to fund the new park. So in my mind, if we're creating a new green space and a new park, it should come from the Parkland Reserve, it shouldn't come from taxation. So that's the equipment that goes in the park, we can have a different discussion on. We obviously have the pavilion going in, but it's my thought anyways that some of this money should be coming from that reserve. Because in essence, it's a green space, it's a park. It's going to be a park, right? And that's how you're going to maintain it, is a park, I'm assuming? Yeah, okay, yeah, so. If anything, I'd rather see us contribute to a reserve or something rather than, because if the project's not going to be done this year. Anyways, that's my comment.
Yeah, no, certainly,
I was just under the impression we were trying to get rid of some of the costs associated with the plazas, and this is going to increase them.
The crosswalk.
So I'm a little.
Getting to the point of the crosswalk is somewhat important as we have activities back and forth, right? Housing development, Ross Video, if they build that second structure there, right? The crosswalk piece, and then tying that together on how the flow is, kind of needs to, work has to be planned or agreed upon. When or how it's funded, you know, is a second question as well. Go ahead, Deputy.
No, and you're right. I mean, there's multiple developments that's going to occur across that road, so it's not just one or two. It's two or three that's going to be required to have it, and two or three that's going to be benefit to have it. You know, so I tend to agree. I never thought of that point, because if you look at the land on the north side, I know that the residential subdivision is offering or going to have a park, but the other ones are not going to have an actual park. So we're going to receive some cash in lieu for that. And I think we capped it at $7,500, and whether that is what we're going to receive. So I'm kind of, I like that idea as well, that it should be coming out of somewhat of a park reserve. But getting back to the initial question, I believe we should reduce it down to $70,000 in terms of the taxation, and then save the $30,000 for now would be my proposal.
Yeah, and with the follow-up to come back with what the plan
Correct.
ideas are, you know, obviously maybe some quoting, rough estimates, and decide from there.
It's a start.
Good. Okay. Anything else in the facilities lines?
I know I'm talking about facilities and not parks. I was just going to capital.
Sorry, Deputy Treasurer.
So is that a yes, we're getting
Yeah,
rid of
30,
that line?
yeah, we'll
Okay.
change it to 30,000 donations, 70,000 tax rate.
Thank you, sir.
And did we remove the 12.5? Sorry.
Front steps 12.5. Front steps 12.5. Yeah, so far from my notes, using all of the Safe Start COVID money, which will be less than 26,000 based on final bills that would come in to pay off, using the planning reserve of 44,000 at some point in the front steps and Iroquois Plaza. So those are the notes so far. Okay, Director Jansen, Recreation.
Thank you, Mayor Broad. So we'll go through this one fairly quickly. Haldane Park, we're all well aware of the grant money we got there. I will say when you apply for OTF funding, it doesn't allow you to put a contingency in. So staff have allowed for a contingency here. As you saw earlier, construction inflation is difficult to keep up with nowadays. From there, you have some Mooresburg Waterfront Committee items. I'll save both the committees till the end, and I'll go through their little lists there from both committees. The water fountain at Mooresburg Waterfront, this is coming out of reserve. It's been a long-standing 100 Men of South Dundas project, hopefully to be finished. Mooresburg waterfront, historic sign. I know many people were at the waterfront pathway cutting, so this I'm sort of tying it in with labeling what the compass is, as well as just incorporating some history. It's a small little project, get the old bell of Mooresburg out of the shop and some signage back out there. The waterfront viewing platform from the donation from the Lions, little Williamsburg swim set replacement, so the one that's currently there is too close to obstructions, reaching the end of its life, and could use some upgrades. You'll see there is 2 park gazebos, both funded by the Parkland Reserve, one for Stewart Drive to fill in the void from the Parkland, or the cash in lieu that we reserved for Dutch Meadows, so we're just getting ready for the influx of residents there. The other one at Loyalist Park, which is a park that's lost some trees recently, but also seen a lot of development along Lakeshore since it became a township road. So just improving our park facilities there. The arena compressor number 2 rebuild started today, actually. Our contractor and the TSA require a regular rebuild, so that just got started. Last year we did some play surface upgrades where there was mulch. This year we're going to do some sand ones. Riverside Park accessibility, we did put a new play structure in there a few years ago. It had some accessible features, however the containment to the facility isn't fully accessible, so just some more upgrades there. Some swing mats, so we did do that mulch upgrade last year. A lot of the damage was below swings. They make a rubber mat that goes underneath swings that helps protect the mulch, so we want to get some of those at some of our high-use parks just to better protect our infrastructure or our asset of the mulch, and just upgrade some parts. The Iroquois boat launch, last year we put $20,000 into reserve, so I'm proposing doing that again this year. As I mentioned during the marina, I think there's a bigger discussion to be had with that whole area, but I just want to make sure that we have at least started to fund the Iroquois boat launch is badly in need of repairs, but I'd hate to repair it when it isn't in the right spot or anything like that, so I think that's just a bigger discussion, but us planning ahead for the costs that are coming our way. The seaway structures that they donated, we do have to get those installed at the 2 parks this year. The Iroquois waterfront fountain, similar to Mooresburg, and many of our soccer fields and ball diamonds are due for, we try and roll them ourselves with a little homemade roller, but I feel like every couple of years we could use a good commercial rolling. I know Williamsburg and Princeton are getting bad, and Mooresburg gets a lot of usage, so they could all use the upgrade. And then if we go to the waterfront committees, I know Councillor Vino and the Deputy Mayor both sit on them. So I'll start with Iroquois. This is projects that the committees have proposed. Iroquois has the waterfront lighting project. Mr. Ross he's going to fund it by donation, but he wants to complete he'll do the north-south directions on either side of the park. They were proposing installing 5 more bench pads with a temporary bench on it looking for donors, so there's $7,500 in the budget for that. There's some drainage improvements at the beach parking lot for $1,500, or sorry, $15,000. They want to go forward with the next phase of wildflower planting. They've done the first phase, so there's $6,000 in the budget for that. There's some portable washrooms. They'd like to provide some outhouses at the west end of the park. There's nothing at that end, so they just want to basically try it with some porta potties to see what the demand is, and see if they should consider looking into putting another one out there. A landscaping, so the park, they're looking to put in some flowers and small trees and shrubs and just improve the aesthetics of the park. There's $5,000 in there for that. And then some picnic tables on pads in unique locations, sort of pull people away from the beach and out into the park. There was $5,000 in the budget for that. And then the committee projects from Mooresburg, as the Deputy Mayor hinted towards, there's an engineering study for some angled parking along Crookshank Way. We'd like to get the engineering, the design, the civil, the survey, all that work out of the way so we can start getting that work done. I'll play off the Deputy Mayor's hints that he's already given. An option that we could look at is phasing the project into 2 phases before we go to public consultation. I think it would be beneficial to have a little bit of the traffic study and a little bit of the information from the consultant. So maybe we phase the project into 2 parts and we do the traffic study and get a little preliminary sketches, so that way we have something for the public to provide their consultation on. And then the Mooresburg Committee took sort of a different approach. Rather than unique direct items, they sort of took an approach similar to our budgets. So they have little minor committees projects, some Christmas light work they want to do, continuing with the shoreline planting, some fishing line, some small projects. So they put an allowance in for $5,000 on these budgets items. They want to continue with the community events, 2 more movie nights, and a few more events throughout the year, so they put a budget in for that. The welcome sign that you'll know at the Mooresburg boat launch, one, it's drastically out of date. I don't think anything on it, I think half the stuff on it doesn't exist anymore, so we're thinking about taking that out and more just making it a welcome sign. And then the final one that they budgeted for was some soccer nets to go in Earl Baker Park, just to pull people, it's a similar idea to Iroquois, pull people from the beach and the Ball Diamond into sort of more of a drop-in recreation area, open play there. There are two other small projects, so in rec programming, we keep offering more and more different types of programs. Many of them are based out of here. Like anybody, the more things you do, the more stuff you collect. So we just need a little bit more storage. That one's being funded by reserve, so that's just to install some new storage cabinets in the room beside us here. And then the last one is for the campground, which is being funded by the campground, and it's pre-approved the construction of their new garage. So any questions on any of these budget items, I'm happy to go through them, and we'll continue to putter away.
Certainly, thank you, Director. Certainly what can't be overlooked at this point is it's over $700,000 worth of projects to be done and almost $300,000 in donations from the public. So a significant amount of donations going against our recreation facilities structure. So that's thank you for those donations.
Yeah, so I think you know where I was going with that. I just think until we do the public consultation, and let's make sure it is the right plan, I think we should just defer that, just that portion of the 43,000 until we get to the next step. So that'd be my recommendation for the Mooresburg Waterfront Committee. In terms of the Iroquois Waterfront Committee, I believe we should net out the drainage improvements, the beach parking lot, and the beach building. As the director and I were chit-chatting there earlier, there's still some improvements that we have to finish off because of due to the lighting project. I think we should be focusing on all of the landscape work and kind of getting that cleaned up. I think the drainage improvement beach parking lot is really a municipal responsibility in operations and can fall under the rec program and versus actually allocating funds to a waterfront committee on that one. So I certainly am comfortable and looking for support to net out the 15,000 for the improvements and just deferring that 43,000 for the Mooresburg until such time as we move ahead with, or you guys move ahead with a good public meeting. Let's get some good feedback on that. Well, that'd be my two proposals.
Councilor Vito?
Yeah, so I totally understand where you're coming from. Because, public consultation is extremely important, especially with projects like this. I think where they were headed with this one is the years fly by and, next thing we're not doing this anymore, or what, maybe or maybe not, and projects just don't get completed. So it was trying to get, because you're going to be a year to do the study and whatnot, and then so it'll be next year regardless if you get a shovel in the ground. So if you defer it completely this year, then we'll be next year doing the study, and then the year following that putting shovel in the ground. So I kind of liked Director Jansen's idea of phasing it, because right now it's hard to go to a public consultation and we don't have anything to show them as to what our concept is. So do we maybe not defer all of the cost, but keep some of it there to do a little bit of preliminary work, I guess, to get a bit of a concept or layout so that we can take that to a meeting, and or a couple meetings, I should say, probably, for public consultation. I'm just not sure what everybody's thoughts are on that one. I just don't want to see it, get drug out and drug out and drug out. Because in our meetings, parking was identified as the it's the catalyst, it's the anchor. Everything else that we want to do as a community down there hinges on parking, because you've noticed now that the Ball Diamonds have gotten busy. That place is an absolute nut show whenever you get the tournaments going on. Like, parking is extremely dire need down there, and so we were hoping to get that project off the ground, if nothing else, just get some parking in there. And I realize we need to see what the public thinks of that concept for parking, but I just trying to hurry it along. I don't want to just blast through it and do something incorrect or what the community doesn't want, but I also don't want to slow it down. We don't.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, and I fully appreciate that, but my fear is, Councillor, that if we go ahead with this study, then you have a public meeting, and then we realize, ooh, well, maybe that's the parking's not really in that best location. Well, now we've already went ahead and spent money on a study for a parking area that maybe moves somewhere else. So I just, again, I'm not saying I don't support, and I'm not supporting, and I'm not saying I don't support the projects or the initiative, and I want to keep the momentum going. I just think we better get in front of the public. Let's make sure that this is the right move and the parking area. Maybe somebody comes up with another idea that the parking area should be located somewhere else or in a better spot, right? So that's all I'm saying on that one. For the parking lot that was built beside the dockside, was there any studies done for that? Was there any? The answer is no. I don't need you to elaborate, but the answer was no. So they already built parking lots and there was no great studies done. So I just don't think I think we got enough intelligent people in South Dundas that we don't necessarily need to go out and get a formalized study completed. I think let's get the plan together, and then if you were to come to me and say, the Waterfront Committee would like $15,000 to get somebody to create an actual plan, I would support that before I would support a study on an actual parking lot.
Director?
Hopefully not just playing devil's advocate here, but I would kind of play off of what Councillor Vino said. I feel like 12 months is a fairly long time that we could get the preliminary, like phase one, just get a little bit of the design that we can go to public consultation. We could 6 months of public consultation and then still complete the design in the final 3 months of the year. I think 12 months is and then the goal is to end up, like at the end of the day, what they put in before was just a pile of gravel in a field. What we're trying to do is widen the roadway. We need tender documents for this. We need construction documents that I can put out for tender for roadway widening that a contractor can bid on. So our end goal of a product. If we get there in 2 phases with 6 months of public consultation in the middle, I think that would be keeping the project moving forward at a good rate.
I hear you. I just don't think you're going to convince me personally that we need to do this right now without knowing what the actual plan is of the entire park and solidifying that first. Once you do that, that's fine. Then maybe we can phase that in 2025, 2026, or do it in 2025. I just don't think at this time. I mean, when I'm thinking about inflationary pressures, interest rate pressures, level of service that's actually essential versus level of service that's would be nice to have. I just personally do not think we should be spending $43,000 on consultants to do the work. I think we can do this in-house for a lot less, and yeah, maybe we need some geotech engineering once we know where the actual parking lot's going. What would you propose if we don't spend the whole 43? What would you propose then as an alternative? Is there something in mind? Would 15, 20,000?
Well, I was going to ask the director. So the preliminary. So if you were to do the traffic study, like whatever was needed to get some documents put together for public consultation, what's the kind of cost involved in that? 8?
I'd say phase one. If I was guessing, I'd think phase one is probably about 8 to 10, and then.
So if we put in 8, we do that, we do public consultation, the public really wants it, but we haven't budgeted anything else. Do we go over our budget and just go ahead with some consultation, or with some consultants at that point, or are we waiting right until 2025 budget and we push it off another year?
Well, I guess what I'm just missing is, why do we need a transportation study? Why do we need,
Because it's a roadway? Right? I'm going to preface this by saying I also agree. I don't like that in the world that we have to use engineers and consultants and everything. I don't like that as much either. Like, I feel it takes the projects a long time. I wish we could dump gravel in the ditch. I asked if we could, but we couldn't. So it's just a fact that we have, apparently, I'm told we need to do these studies and et cetera to get the documentation that we need to do these jobs. unfortunately.
I don't know. I recall the county's passed a site plan for an A&W in Winchester, and there wasn't much of a traffic study done.
All right, well,
We'll probably argue with this until we're blue.
oh,
in
we
the
can
face,
argue this
Councillor.
until tomorrow morning.
So what would you,
Councilor Ward jump in. Input.
So I get both sides, like I totally understand. So I don't want to be the person on the fence, but the other thing I was looking at is, you know, they have quite a few items in here. They've got 6,000 for a welcome sign, 6,500 for a soccer net. Like, what's more important to them? Is it the traffic study and the flow of traffic and the parking? Like, can we defer soccer nets or defer the boaters welcome sign? Like, I'm not a boater, but I don't think I've ever looked at that sign, to be quite honest, and I don't know if anybody else does either.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we can reduce some other line items, and then there won't be as big of an impact to the tax base.
And those ones are easier to fund through donation
Donations and raising.
fundraising.
Yeah,
and
and
whatnot.
that's kind of what I'm wondering, is if that's where we want to cut, like if the meat and potatoes is in the 43 and that's what they need, and, you know, to the deputy mayor's point, he's talking about wants versus needs, like, they're all kind of wants, I wouldn't say that they're all needs, but which one is the one that they absolutely can't get by without? And, like, there's other areas too, like that we're rehoming a bell that we've had for I don't know how long. That's $5,000 or something like that. Like, I mean, if we want to cut some of the minor to put it in the meat and the potatoes, like, I would be on board for that. It's just, if we're going to do something, we need to do it. I really feel that municipalities and everywhere, we spend a lot of money on these studies, these designs, and then they never go anywhere. And so if we're going to put 43,000, like, I want to make sure, like, that whole study is done in 24, and then we're shovel ready in 25, and we can apply for grants. Because if it's not done, in my mind, we wasted $43,000. So if that's the way we want to go, I would be in favor of cutting some of the smaller items. I don't know what those smaller, you sit on the committee, so you can tell me which ones are more important to everyone, and then, like, some of the other minor capital that we have going on at the waterfront. Because there are projects at the waterfront that aren't in the waterfront budget either, that we could probably reduce or eliminate, like that bell. So that's 5, 10.
If I could play on that one then, so needs versus wants. I would be definitely supportive of that, because I think to us, the parking is a need. We're worried somebody's going to get hit. There's going to be a kid run out from behind one of those cars one day as people are driving by. That road it's insane whenever the ball tournaments are on. And I don't want to take away from that, because I think that activity down there has been great. And so I would be for vetoing some of these beautification projects, or smaller projects as we talk about them, and looking to see if task the committees with funding that elsewhere, whether it be public funding, private donations, whatever, and work on something that we think is more of a need, which we believe is parking. At the end of the day, that whole budget of the waterfront committee, I would say that the parking along there is the largest item that needs to get done. So,
Two comments to follow up on. One is whether we replace the sign or not, the sign needs to go, because having incorrect information is not what we want. So minimally, take the sign down, because it's all incorrect information about the boat launch. So to your point, whatever they choose on that one. And as far as the soccer nets go, free play, super important, free play, right? That's an activity that there's no cost to us, or there's no programming required for free play, right? So that's also super important as well. Deputy Eric?
okay, so then I would propose that we fund 50% of their total cost. So instead of 60,500, we reduce it to $30,000, and we'll let the waterfront committee decide where they want to spend that money.
Councilor Reno?
is that the will of the council? No, it's not a negotiation, right? Like, it's whatever's
Well, it's
best
not,
for the...
but it kind of, we got to be fair to everybody across South Dundas, and
Yep.
$60,000 is a big chunk of change. Acts ask for, from taxation to fund. And it's an important initiative, but I think we can do this probably if we reduce, do it over, like David's convinced me, the director's, let's phase this in then. And I'd be willing to support that, but $60,500 is, I think again, we've done a lot of great things to both waterfronts to make them better, and I just think there's still a lot of inflationary pressures, interest pressures, and other pressures that are coming along with our budget that I'm just not comfortable about funding all of it at this time. So if we want to phase it, I would be willing to bend on that phase, and if that's...
Would the deputy mayor be amenable to matching what we're giving Iroquois, the $40,500?
Well, no, because I don't believe that we need to fund that $15,000. I think David's...
So if we reduce if we just matched what we gave both committees, that way it's equal, fair,
well,
and
like
then they can spend that money as they see fit? Like, I'm not sure.
At the end of the day, we have a joint committee basically now,
Yeah,
right?
you do.
So if
You might find deficiencies in some of these projects.
We could, and that would make it easier at that joint committee meeting between the two committees because we could get, I guess, some criticism if we gave one more than the other. So I think that's actually not a bad idea.
I don't look at it quite like that, Councillor. I look at the projects that are being proposed. I'm okay that way as well. If we want to be fair to both, we give the same amount to both for this year, and maybe that's what we should be looking at anyways every year, instead of saying, well, come with all your budget requirements. Well, maybe we should be coming up with, and I think that was the purpose of the original waterfronts when we developed. I think we were trying to give them kind of a similar amount every year to complete their project. So maybe that is the best way, is we give them, $25,000, we give them $25,000 each for their projects, and if some projects are more expensive and they got to phase it and do it over a 2-year period, then they do it over a 2-year period. So I'm okay with that as well. So I would propose that. I would propose $25,000 for both waterfront committees. And I'll be the bad guy.
I certainly, previous councils started a waterfront committee, and we have volunteers signed up to, meet regularly and do activities and volunteer their time to make improvements there. Although we're looking at a difficult year on taxation, we also want to put something towards it as well. So. Any other thoughts, comments? So right now the suggestion is 25,000 per or 30,000 per. What's the total?
What's the total ask of each of them?
So
101 combined.
101 combined?
Yeah.
And then with the reduction that we were talking about to Iroquois, it was 25,500 each. Like, that's what it came down to, but.
Yeah. So we give 25 to each.
That's 50, so that's 51,000.
From 100 and.
I think we just round it and give both waterfront committees $25,000, and I think that should set the base, to be quite frank for next year as well.
Councillor Smith? Agreed? Councillor Ward?
Yep.
Okay, so to Treasury, reduce the waterfront lines from current to 25,000 to Iroquois, 25,000 to Morrisburg. So approximately a 51,000 savings. Okay, any other, sorry, Councillor Wood?
Can we go back to the bell?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yep, I was just,
Not that I'm putting on the bell,
Yep.
and I apologize, like, Director Jameson, please don't take this personally. It's just if we're doing these
Wants like, let's save $5,000 on the bell, like it's not the year. And honestly, maybe we want to talk to Morrisburg Waterfront Committee because it's not even in their budget, because that's where it's going.
So through you, Mayor Broad, I did bring this up in the
did you?
Morrisburg Waterfront
Okay.
Committee. I've talked to the past president about it. I'll admit it's a bit of a passion project of my own, so I might
Oh.
find funding in the repairs and maintenance budgets and try and do it on the cheap type of thing. Yeah, but I think from the Morrisburg waterfront and from the Seaway history as a whole, it would be a beautiful addition to the Morrisburg waterfront. I'm still waiting for exact quotes on how much refurbishing the bell would cost exactly, so that might drive it. But at the end of the day, if refurbishing of the bell comes in inexpensive, and all I have to do is put a concrete pad in and put the bell on it, I might just be able to push that through within regular operations as well.
Yeah, I think if we look for savings there, I'd like to just cut it as a capital item, and if David can fit it into his operation and maintenance, he can, and if he can't, then we find another, like, I don't want you to throw it out by any means, but maybe just this year is not the year for the extra 5,000. I know it doesn't hit the tax base that much, but if we're gonna, I don't want to
Yep.
say if we're gonna cut other budgets, we should probably cut some of the other items.
Okay, so cut the 5,000 for the
If
bill.
that's what everybody is okay with, I don't know. Yeah, okay.
Any other comments on recreation? Okay. Thank you, Director Jansen. Moving to 4Q, Economic Development. CEO Mills.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, through you. So first, we'll talk about accomplishments in ECDEV in 2023, the creation of public lands map, and the public lands, not all inclusive, but we have partners, provincial partners that own a lot of land in our municipality, OPG, MNR, the counties, South Nation Conservation, and the St. Lawrence Parks Commission. So we're working on creating that. We've made a lot of progress there, and we're working closely with planning. There was a Dragons Investors event for hotel recruitment, specifically for a couple pieces of land. We're looking at one in the Iroquois, and there was some real interest in that. The annual council breakfast and award ceremony, the Community Improvement Plan, or CIP. We had 4 applicants approved. We worked closely with the Economic and Community Development Committee, and we need to do a lot more work there. The use of the ECDEV CRM and mass email systems, and those two right there go towards 2024. We need to network a lot more. We recently met with a group of staff, and we're going to meet on a regular basis with Sophia to work on that property and the development. And the staff, including economic development, attended a lot of local events to promote the municipality, particularly in the summertime at events. Looking ahead to 2024, we're already there, and staff will note the appointment of Economic Development and Communications Officer, who's in the back, Tia. So next year at this time, including, this year, sorry. Well, next year, I guess. This year, next year at this time, including this, but I've also, throughout tonight, it was nice that it was at the end, because I've added a number of things to the list for the new person in economic development. So some are there, and I'm going to add some. So accessing regional services, I touched on that at the beginning. Collaborating a lot more with the counties, and I've listed some that are not there. Community Futures, Eastern Ontario Training Board, the Cornwall Business Enterprise Center, who presented here, Job Zone. It's been talked about before earlier in council, prior to my time, about municipal land and identifying municipal land, what we would consider selling and or not, and we're working on that. And we need to identify some land that needs to be surveyed and then start promoting it. When you're looking at assets and liabilities, we just finished talking through facilities, and council has brought up that there's potential liability there, a lot of liability for us with a lot of the properties and or especially facilities that we own, but I think we can all agree that land's an asset, and it's an asset we need to capitalize on through ECDEV. And we need to attract more investment, commercial, industrial, and residential. That's on the housing, our workforce. There's a growth study. I know there was a growth study that was completed in North Glengarry. It was discussed at the county level, and it was something that actually was cut in the budget. So we're reaching out to our partner to look at that. Sorry, that was the BRNE. The growth study is at the county level. It's already done, correct? That's in draft. Sorry. And our ongoing water and sewer capacity study. This week or next week, we have a delegation at Roma with the tourism minister, tourism, recreation and sport minister about the water, wastewater expansion, potentially to Upper Canada Village through St. Lawrence Parks Commission. So we're going to continue to work on that. I mentioned earlier about grant writing, and we need to have a plan of action there and develop that and capitalize on absolutely every opportunity to get free money. I already mentioned facilities, and we need to hang out our sign aggressively and digitally. We need to develop a lot more things digitally to say we're open for business. On the capital side, it was mentioned earlier about the giant tiger mural. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, any questions on that? Budget itself, the reduction? All right, seeing none, we'll move to R, PIL and grants. Treasurer Stewart?
Yes. Thank you for you, Mayor Broad. So PIL and grants. PIL and grants, we have increase in routine payments, routine payment in lieu of $49,000. This is a move in assessments to a different class. That's what is causing this increase in revenue. We have an increase in Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund of $35,000. And we did not include the reserve this year. The reserve transfer for inflation impact. That was there in 2023, I believe mostly for fuel. We believe that the budget should sufficiently cover the fuel costs this year, so we don't feel it's necessary. If we move to health services next, the industrial park debt charges were funded from proceeds of a property sale. And we moved the Taylor Road Bridge debt to the Public Works Department in their budget. Finally, with the final one, Crossing Guards and Conservation Authority. So the Conservation Authority, their levy increased by just under $3,000. And we reduced the funding needed for the crossing guards because there was a crosswalk installed in 2023. And that is it for those, if there's any questions.
Yeah, so we covered off PIL's grants, health services, crossing guards, all the whole tab there, which were several items on the agenda. Questions, comments, Councilor Ward?
General question, so on the OIPC loan repayments page, what's underneath, it just says OIPC loan interest. Is that the interest on all the repayments? Or what is that for? Sorry. Just out of curiosity. It's 106,000.
Yes, the OIPC loan interest is the interest on the debt lines you see there, industrial park, sorry, not the industrial park, it's covered under, yes, sorry, the interest for the industrial park is covered there, the interest charges for this building and for the Iroquois Medical Clinic.
And then Taylor Road Bridge went,
To Public Works.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, so let's move through all of the operational budgets. The capital budget, which we've talked, facilities, fleet, recreate, we did talk fleet during fleet, but I know Councilor Vino, I don't know if you asked your questions during that time. You did ask your questions, good. Fire and public works were captured. Any further discussions on fleet or capital, that is?
Just on the capital, we touched upon it, Director Hyman touched upon it on the grader. I do think we should be approaching the county again and seeing if we can extend that lease agreement and see where they're coming from. Be my
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
We could then look at municipal grants and donations if we wanted to look at that. Because we covered off at the very start the dollar amount in the corporate services. Yeah, no, sorry, Manager Hyman.
Just to add a little bit more context to that suggestion that was made, if we do look at extending that lease, then we will have to continue grading their shoulders. Therefore, I will lose a staff member for the summertime. And I did not budget for a part-time staff member to replace the loss of that one staff member in the grader. So I just wanted to bring that bit of information forward.
Okay. Very good. So it wouldn't necessarily be the intent of passing all the specific activities, but at least we could approve the dollar amount that we reviewed in the corporate services budget. Which was, and I can't find it. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so grants and donations, we had budgeted last year at 107,000, and we wanted a budget this year at 75,000. So with that being said, at this point, we don't have 66, the total, if we were to approve, we only have 66,000 in requests. So would we want to consider making that less at this time, or is that something that...
Last year, did we approve X amount, then leave ourselves a slush for the remainder of the year, just in
Correct.
case some extras came in?
Correct.
We did.
Yeah.
That's recognized.
Well, it would be,
No, the total is 66 and budgeted is 75, so there is a slush fund. Well, if we keep the 75.
Yeah, what did we do last year?
107, we approved like 98, and then we had
Left
107.
about 10 grand.
Yeah. Treasurer Stewart?
If I could just clarify, the budget is 75,000, but we have 50,000 to Dundas Manor. That's a prior commitment, and 3,000 to hospice. So what we have remaining is 22,000 available for these additional applications.
To service is 66.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so a third of it.
So we would make a significant cut in our
Yes.
donations. Tough times, tough years, right? Councillor Smith?
So now. Last year's, there was still 10,000 left over that went into, did it go into reserve or?
Deputy Treasurer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any surplus that would fall in that donation line would just go to the bottom line and go to the working reserve
Okay,
with the rest of the surplus or deficit, whichever the case may be.
okay.
If we have surplus sitting in our grants, why wouldn't it just stay in the grants?
It becomes a working reserve, right? So how do we offset?
Okay, so it's in our working reserve.
Yeah, it's in our work. Yeah.
If we know the amount.
If we end up with a end of the year,
I understand.
Yeah.
Councillor Ward?
Just to go to that point, do we anticipate there to be a surplus in '23?
I do not have that answer at this time. There's too many year-end entries to yet be done, and we still have invoices coming in every day.
So outside of the 50, so what did, what did we spend last year outside of our commitments, our predetermined commitments?
So
An extra 50.
Well, I guess it would have been the difference between 53 and 107.
Yeah.
Okay.
94 is the actual. So 40,000.
So this year, we're staring at 50% of what we
Correct.
Yep.
pledged last year.
Yep.
Needs versus wants.
Yep.
Needs versus wants, right?
Yeah, yeah. Just a question, Rod, I mean, do we have a handle on, I'm trying to say, articulate this correctly so I don't insult any of our great groups out there, but I know that we've got some funding requests, but I also know that some of these groups, after they've completed their festival, donates money back to the community. So I guess my question is it fair for us to donate money towards events if they're generating revenue to then turn around and give it back to the community? And I'm just looking at, you're on the 2B committee, right, Counselor? So if you guys, I forget how much money you donated, but if you're donating that money to community, shouldn't you maybe be holding back so you can offset some of your expenses the year after? Does that make sense?
That should be
to you,
true
or-
for any of the.
Yeah, and I just, because I know councilors, I'm looking for your, more of his opinion on that, then I'm not trying to put you on the spot either, because I know you're on that committee, but.
Yeah, tough one to answer. I
So don't answer it. There's an event. An event's going to happen, and we write them a check for $2,500, and they make $5,000 and give $5,000 to the Lions Club or the hospital, and that, well, actually, $2,500 came from the tax base to their donation. That's your point, right? No matter what event it is.
Yeah, is that your?
No matter what your point, right? So is that right or wrong? That should be wrong. We set up barriers and we do, in-kind work, absolutely. That's all part of having a community event, but I don't think we're necessarily writing the donation check to the group.
The only issue becomes, sorry if I speak out of turn.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
The only issue becomes is now you have to try and sift through each one of these groups and each one of these events and identify the ones that do give money back to the community and those that don't, right? Because I agree.
Yeah, right. And it should come up in the application it may not this year, but that would be something we could ask in future years, right?
Yeah, like you'd almost have to have a contingent of, you know, the group not giving out donations to,
Right, yeah, it's a,
whose money was it?
right,
Was it, you know, a private donation that donated to that group for that event as well? You don't know whose money it was that they gave out because it all goes into one pool, so, yeah, no, I agree that we shouldn't be, because if that's the case, we would donate it ourselves to the Lions Club.
Right.
that was the-
right,
if that was
right.
the-
But, that's right,
the
if,
donation was
if all the profits from an event go to the Winchester Hospital, why don't we just make the donation to the Winchester Hospital?
Correct.
Right, although we want to have the events and have them happen too,
Exactly.
right? Like, there's, I understand that, I just, we
agree.
have something that, yeah, yeah. In essence, we don't need to, we're not deciding tonight on who gets
No.
what, right? We just need to decide on that budget item, right? So I wanted to make sure we,
I think, I think I'm comfortable with the 50% of last year, comfortable as budgeted, and we just have to figure out what groups fit into that number.
right,
If we're budgeted at 75, it's just,
that's right.
So, last year, the Beyond 21, I think we gave a significant
Yeah, we did, yeah.
donation to that, right? I mean,
And just because we did it one year, doesn't mean we have to repeat.
correct.
Especially
correct.
in that case, I mean, great organization, but they also, they got the $100,000.
Correct.
They won the,
Correct.
they won that, yeah, so that was a,
Correct, correct. Like, in my personal opinion, I think helping J.W. McIntosh is a far, right now for us, is
more important.
more important, thank you.
In today's
More important
climate.
In today's climate, and it is within our municipality. I think, you know, do we need to fund the whole 23.3? I forget again, last year, what would we have, 10?
yeah, and that was work again, that we never used to fund, is they used to have volunteer drivers do while they're
That's right.
driving, and after COVID, the people weren't volunteering their time, and now they're paying for drivers, right, so.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between like a school bursary and one of these groups that are giving the money back, right? And I'm definitely in agreement with JW Mac. I'd like to give, I'm not saying we need to fund the whole thing, but that is an extremely important service in our community. I know a lot of people that utilize it, and so.
Just cut the wall in half.
Is this the last item, Mayor Broad?
Yeah, so this is our last item, unless CEO Mills or clerk, there's anything else we've covered all the budget items, so.
I guess I'm just thinking out loud here a little bit. Do we just want to kind of, you know, it's 9 o'clock, we've been at it since 5:30. Do we want to just break for tonight and then revisit this with fresh minds tomorrow and just kind of
Yeah.
recap? I mean, I know myself, I'm getting a little bit tired looking numbers and stuff, and I know, and unfortunately, staff has to come back tomorrow night as well to join us, but I'm just wondering if we shouldn't just break and come with fresh minds tomorrow. We may have another idea or two on the budget. Don't get choked up about it.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Totally up to
the
you
plan
guys if
was,
you wanna keep plowing ahead.
the plan was to work 2 nights on it, so that's what everybody committed to. But I think we've executed a lot of light items that we looked at. Yeah, no, that makes sense, to reconvene tomorrow night, and we can then get a sense for where we're at too, on some of the things we've talked
Yeah,
about.
I wouldn't mind, where are we at right now is,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There were... Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There were a few items that council discussed tonight, but before we got to the table, staff had identified a saving in
in labor of 9,200 due to recent restructuring in town hall, municipal building. From the discussion of the Committee of the Whole and Blue Box last week, there's a potential saving there, depending on which way council goes, in the neighborhood of 55,000 if we start the plan sooner rather than later. Moving the voice over internet protocol phones to Safe Restart for 26,000. There is 26,000 available in the reserve for the full amount. 12,500 cut for the front steps, 30,000 cut to reduce the Iroquois Plaza scope, 35,500 reduction to the Morrisburg waterfront scope, 15,500 reduction to the Iroquois waterfront scope, and $5,000 to for the relocation of the bell. All of those cuts, including those I mentioned for the recycling plan, would be, just one second, 188,960, which would bring us to very tentatively 7.55% levy increase.
Levy?
Levy.
So the tax?
That one's a little more,
But it's about a little.
about 6.7. 6.7
Yeah,
in this portion.
pretty good.
Okay, so reconvene tomorrow night, 5:30. Can spend whatever time. We have any thoughts, any more comments, go back through, and then give Treasury a chance to double check all their numbers as well. Okay?
Excellent.
Hey, CO Mills, we're good? We're good? Okay, I have a motion that council now adjourn to meet at the call of the chair, which is tomorrow night. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. And we'll close off our meeting, first budget meeting for January 15th. Thank you, everybody that's in attendance and watched. Good night.